It's going to be good. It's my favorite class. Okay, so I'm going to get started. And just a reminder too that this is it's on YouTube, not for the general public, but for some applicants who are coming in to audit this class. And so I'll explain, I'll explain a little bit the function of the class because it is our first one. I'll explain why it's my favorite class. You don't have to agree. I'm just telling you, it's my favorite class for lots of very strange reasons, but we'll get into that. But I just want to start by welcoming anybody who's here to join our class. You'll see how the structure goes, but it has a very particular structure. This is a third year production management class, and I call it practical production management, which I'll explain why in a minute. So we just want to welcome everybody. My name is Andrea Lundy. I'm the director of the production design and technical arts technical arts program. And I was just going to say, these are my students, the third year students and the first year students. Maybe third year students, just give a wave. I think you're all actually at the top of the screen. You are. And then the first year students, some are hiding, some are going to wave. Excellent. Thanks everybody for joining us. So this class is part of the program, the Production Design and Technical Arts program, and we train students in production management, technical direction, stage management, lighting design, sound design, and video design. Just a few things, 6 disciplines all together. It's not very complicated at all. It's a 3-year full-time professional program, and core elements include working with design teams, dialoguing with directors, finding innovative solutions, excelling in technical and management skills, and creating a rigorous and collaborative working environment. Right, everybody? Yeah, they're all gonna say yes. Training here is very hands-on, and we have a great privilege to put our training into practice on the many shows we work on. So what we have here today is obviously a class that is not hands-on. Normally, in a normal year, both classes, we'd be in the same room together. We have a projector, we have things, the set design projected, the plans projected, all kinds of things that we can look at together, and I can draw on the drawing, and we can really hone in on detail that way. So that's kind of how this class really works the best, in person, and I can tell a couple of good jokes, very funny. We'll see if that happens here. And the second version of that was going to be actually, I guess, in what we would call Orange Zone here in Montreal, would be with me and the third years in the same class together, and the first years zooming in just to kind of cover it. So we could still practically work the class the way we wanted to, and the first years are joining us. We're in red zone, so that means that we have to put online anything that can happen online, and technically this is one of those classes. So I've just kind of made my office into a makeshift classroom. I tried the third year classroom, but the internet there is not good enough, because look, I've got this view, and then I'm gonna go over here, and I'm gonna write on the board, and I'm gonna freak you out because I'm on 2 totally different computers. Isn't that? I am very, very technical, just right. So this is because I will want to write some stuff on the board, but we're gonna be spending a lot of time talking with the TD and the PM of the current show. So what is this class? This is our first class. Normally by this time of the year, we would have already finished 2 classes, because they are directly connected to the productions that we're working on. The thing about production management curriculum is that it is very hard to teach in a really robust way, because you learn it really mostly when you are practicing it. That is when everything lands. That's when you figure out how to take the structures and the lectures that we talked about, the idea of how to budget something, how to schedule something. It's when you are actually applying it into a real situation, and discovering how to bring your personality to a management role, how to take a management role to the next level, and actually what is production management. I think it's actually maybe hard to understand until you're doing it. So for me, this class is a preparation class for that to happen. So it is a class, I guess you can call it kind of a really glorified production meeting, but it aims at really honing in on the work that's happening. So that the show that we're working on in the first of each of this two classes per show, we really hone in on the details, so that we're trying to pull out details and pull apart the work that we're doing to better understand it, to better know how to keep moving forward. So the majority of the time today is spent in conversation. So I'm not going to be lecturing at you for 3 hours. It's really it's a practical conversation around work that is actually happening. And the first years are here because without them being here, they don't experience this conversation until third year, and that's just too late for them to start to understand that level of conversation that we have, certainly in third year, but moving on into the professional world. So I include them in this as auditors, as monitors, and if they have a question, they're more than welcome to ask them. But really, it's a lot of listening and trying to understand a process. So, it sits within the curriculum in that it lands exactly at the moment that somebody is doing the work. So today we have Brianna is our production manager for the show coming up, and Tiffany is our TD for the show coming up. And then we also have Haley, who's the lighting designer, Aurora, who's a sound designer, Brendan, who's our stage manager, Caitlin, who is our live stream director, which we're going to really talk about that specifically because that's new for us, and Ava, who is our video designer. So with each of these people, as we talk about the details of the show, we're going to pull out information. We're going to pull out impact points that really are important for us to figure out how to put the show onto the stage. So for you guys in the room, what we're doing is basically standard project management tools. We're taking those tools and we're trying to ascertain and manage constraints. We all have to manage constraints somehow. It is, and that is okay. We talk about issues as challenges and constraints as normal. It is pie in the sky to think that you will never have a constraint, that you can always just keep moving forward and spend the money and not even have to worry about a single detail that's going to slow you down. That is just not the case. This is going to happen about 10 times. My light's going to go on and off. You're going to forgive me for that. But the constraints that we are trying to manage are what I've written on the board over here. So we're trying to manage the scope of a production. I'm coming back in view. Sorry, in my notes, too many different places. We're trying to manage the scope of a production, which is basically its size. How big is it? How small is it? And all of the elements that determine those things. What goals do we have? And what are the requirements that we need to figure out to meet those, the scope of the show. We also have a constraint of money usually. And so that includes costs and contingencies and how do we manage that. We also talk about managing time, schedules, deadlines, and a critical path as we move from the beginning of the process to the end of the process. And our resources, how do we manage our resources? And our resources include, they include people, they include equipment, they include the venue, they include materials, anything that we can physically apply to the process, and how do we manage that? How do we ascertain what we need? What are the constraints, and how do we move forward with that? And so those are tools as concepts. Hopefully by the end of this class, you'll understand how to take those concepts and apply them in real practical ways. That is ultimately the goal of this whole conversation, is to be able to read a book on production management and understand how to actually apply it. I very much believe in that we don't talk a lot about theories. We very much kind of let's not talk about theories, but let's actually put it into practice right away. So we'll pull apart the production and we'll talk about impact points, how they affect schedules, budgets, and the use of our resources in all of those constraints. Right, so issues as challenges, we'll talk about issues as challenges and constraints as normal. That is 100% the way you should be thinking. And we're always, and just remember that we're always in the middle of finding solutions and seeing our way around obstacles, right? So what is the path to yes? And the path to yes includes compromise. The path to yes also includes no, but ultimately the goal is to find a way to keep moving forward, right? Which is the yes. So sometimes you have a request, a design, a big idea, or something that is brought forth. And for whatever reason, sometimes the answer is actually, no, we cannot do that. But as PMs and TDs, our goal is to say, okay, maybe not that, but what about this? If it can't be that, how do we get to the yes from this no? How do we get to a yes? And how do we bring options to the table, right? If I reach a wall, if I'm at a brick wall, my goal is to always find a way over it, around it to the left, this side, around it to the right. If I stop at the wall, I stop doing my job. And I actually impede a creative process because I'm not allowing for the work to absorb the hard moments and to find ways to keep going. So in this class, there's going to be a lot more questions than answers. And Tiffany and Brianna are going to have a massive to-do list at the end of it, pages and pages. So we're going to be super kind to them and not judgmental. None of this is judgmental. If you haven't thought about something yet, we are here to discover what you haven't thought about. And that's just part of the course. And that's you're here to learn. And I think also what we really need to be careful about is to remember to try and always pull away from feeling like we have to control everything. Because nothing really about working in theater is about control, although I do know some people think of it that way. And being PMs and TDs, your job is not to control everything. Okay, your job is a lot of other things, but it's really not to be in control in the sense of not allowing things to be discovered and for exploration to take place. Our job is to provide information, bring communication to the role as well, and practically apply our knowledge to design elements so that we can actually allow our exploration to occur, right? And I think we are rarely finding final answers. I think the joy of being, actual joy of being a PM and TD is that there is always a new way to think about something. So our goals for this class, and also all of the classes for this year, and all of the productions for this year, there's a bunch of goals that I want to mention, and I can send that list to you guys later, so don't worry about writing all these down. They're really just ideas and thoughts. Our goal is to provide what we can to allow for exploration to flourish. And try not to get in the way of explorations with absolutes. Often you're trying to change an absolute into a conversation so that we can keep moving forward, right? So it's not, no, we cannot, but it's maybe not this. But let's talk about these other options that I have researched. Always remain open and flexible to change, always. Enjoy that creative process, right? Because allowing yourself to be part of the discovery and not blocking them is actually your job and is kind of the fun part as well. Try to consistently find active ways to manage your own worry about details. Okay, so as students, as professionals as well, sometimes you're dealing with a lack of knowledge or a lack of confidence, basically a lack of experience. And in a learning environment, you have to kind of give yourself a break in that way. Just kind of think, I don't know these things and it's okay. It doesn't mean that I have to feel bad about it. I don't have to worry about things in the sense that, how do I do something when I don't know? You are here to learn, if not how to do something, how to research the way to find a way to do something. That's a very complicated sentence, but you get what I mean. And it's the strength of your research-based approach that actually will make you more respected in the workplace. In the sense that if you do your homework, the answers that you give are based on real information. And the more that you do that, certainly in the professional world, the more that you do that, so you bring informed answers to the conversation rather than quick and easy answers, you gain more and more respect, and often you're listened to earlier. I'm sure you've all come into a situation where you've said, this is what we're going to do, and somebody said, I don't believe you. I don't know if you know all the details. So I'm not going to do that. Why don't you go do your research and come back, right? The more you do the research and you come in with the list of ways that things work, or the list of ways that things don't work, then it becomes more of you're communicating in really strong ways. And you're changing it into a conversation rather than an absolute dictated answer. And do your best to try not to navigate towards the easy answer because it's easy. Sometimes the easy answer is the right approach, but sometimes, often it's not. Sometimes we actually have to pick the hardest thing to do because it is the right thing to do. You don't often know the difference. As you gain experience, you learn more and more about how to use your instinct to be able to define the path forward. You're not always right, but as long as you're communicating a conversation, then you should continually have a way to collaborate and work with your peers to find new paths forward. And building trust within the team is part of you doing the research, also part of you just being genuinely honest. And if you don't know, don't say you know. Because it doesn't, people can, I think just generally people can understand when somebody says they know something and they don't. Anybody who's good at reading people will kind of go, okay, well, they don't know, but they're worried, or they're afraid to say yes because they don't understand what yes means or what the implications are yes are. Everybody has that worry. We all worry about the work that we're doing. But the more you apply yourself to researching the background and details, the better you will be able to work through that. And just as you gain more experience, your instincts grow, as does your confidence, as does the respective peers. So I often talk about, what is leadership, right? Being a leader in the room is not being the loudest. It's also not often being the person who knows the most. It really is the person who listens the best. A good listener understands how to read the room and understands how to be open and honest about their own work. Leading by example is, you can write that down. What does that actually mean? It actually just means being a genuine person and not letting your fears guide your actions. So as PMs and TDs, that is often the fear comes out because you have a lot of responsibility. You're responsible for taking many aspects of a production and landing it on the stage so that the cast can come to that stage and they are safe and they are able to do their work, and every other designer is able to layer their work on top. And if things kind of fall by the wayside, you have to fix it, right? And even if it's not your fault, you still have to fix it. So just the last thing I'll say before we kind of go into the talking more about the play that we're talking about today is that, I think it's Micheline Chevrier, who's a director here in Toronto, who kind of gave us this saying, and it's something that we very much believe in, right? The more you plan, the better prepared you are to adapt. So that is what we're doing today. We are starting a robust planning phase, and we are going into the details and really pulling them apart. Any questions so far? Okay, so we're actually going to start with our stage manager. So what I've asked Brendan to do is just really give us a short description, a resume of the play, so that we all kind of know what we're starting to talk about. It doesn't have to be long, just a resume.
So the play we're talking about is Indecent, which is written by Paula Vogel, and so we're presenting that play here. It's the story of a dead troupe telling the story about a different play, The God of Vengeance by Sholem Asch, which was written by Asch in Europe. It features a lot of Jewish characters. Asha's Jewish. Lesbianism, prostitutism. That's not a word. Prostitutes, and those sorts of things. So it faced a lot of criticism, both from within and without the Jewish community. They presented it in America or in Europe. It transferred to America. The production was shut down due to obscenity and various sorts of things. So it's the story of this play, of the people in the play, of identity, of community, and this is all set against over a long span of years, sort of against the background of the Holocaust and anti-Semitism movements as well. So that's sort of a broad overview of the play. Did you want me to mention the team as well, Andrea, at this point?
Sure, yeah, because it's not necessarily obvious who's directing, and maybe first years may not know much.
So the director is Mike Payette. He's a local Montreal director. The music director is Floyd Ricketts. He's the current head of music at the school. The set design is by Jung-Ah Im, and the costumes are by Mariana Chan, the costume design. And they're both scenography students here at the school, the set and costume design program. And then the technical designers are already mentioned within our class. Haley is our lighting designer, Aurora is our sound designer, and Ava is our video designer. So that's the creative team.
That's great, and it's the third year actors who are in the play. So in general, the productions we work on are the majority of third year students and third year as well as set and costume design students, and always a professional director, with the exception of 2 shows that happen every other year. But we work a lot with professional directors, and then our process is to try and work within an equity. An equity structure, and that is every now and then we break that structure because it doesn't work in a school setting, but that is to prepare students for working with equity companies once they graduate. So a lot of what we talk about today we'll try and bring it, kind of wrap it back around into, especially when we get to scheduling, about equity and use of time and how we're going to do this. Also, part of our conversation, of course, is going to be about COVID protocols. And we are changing our process to allow for all of our protocols, and we have many, all of them to keep us all safe, right? So it does mean very specific things that impacts the schedule a lot. It impacts the size of show that we're doing. We've scaled down. We have definitely scaled down, and all of the design elements, what we are doing, because we make a choice to not try and add time and do the same amount, but we are doing less in the same amount of time that we normally do it. So we have a 2-week build, a 1-week load in, 1 week with actors on stage, and then normally they would be performing in the week. But when we get to the schedule, which will be in the second half of the class, you'll see how that's going to morph and change. So we're going to add Tiffany in now. So Tiffany, our TD, is going to show us the reference materials, right, from Jung-Ah, just on so that we get an idea of what the physical look is. So Tiffany's going to share her screen.
Okay. Let me know if you can see it.
Yeah, great.
Okay. So I just have her whole presentation up.
Yeah,
but
I mean, you don't have to do her presentation. Obviously, this is her work. So the reference, the inspiration material is kind of good to start with, and then all of the photos she took of her model are great.
Yeah. So essentially, Jung-Ah, the 2 major words that she used for her design is the idea of restoration and rebuilding, simply because she has that inspiration from the troupe coming to life. And so as you can see, some of the images here, it's a lot of like things that have been destroyed, but they're kind of being transformed into something new. This photo here was like her first major inspiration of a crumbling and destroyed wall, and there's a woman painting over it to try to make something out of it. And so if we keep going, we need to do process. It's kind of like version 1, but from different like formats and different meetings with the director, Mike, this is kind of what we have for the final. This is her maquette. So we have 2 major wall structures. The stage left wall over here is going to be used as a projector surface. And we have a stage right wall over here that has some doorways and windows for the actors to play around with. And we also have some boxes over here and some planks. So the idea with restoration and rebuilding is that these boxes can open and there's things stored inside like props and costume pieces, and they're stackable, and they can also actors can use the planks and kind of transform these boxes and planks into new things that they can use on stage. So that's kind of like with some bodies on there. There's some suitcases that the set designer wants to use, again, for the transformation and rebuilding. There's some more examples. Example with the boxes and the planks, which is kind of the vision that she was going for. We have some lighting examples that she was hoping that could be implemented in some shape or form. And here's some examples with projection. There is a psych and a scrim combination that is planning to be used there for our video designer and our lighting designer. And as I said before, the stage left wall is also a form of a projection surface. More examples, more examples. And then this, again, more inspiration for how she wants the bricks and the crumbling and the stone to kind of be represented, what she wants that to look like. So here's some of those things. Here's one of her samples that she did a couple of weeks ago with their scenic painter, Vero, and those samples have been passed down to Haley, the lighting designer, and Ava as well, so they can use in testing, which is like pretty great. And there's some images of the floor and what she's hoping that it will look like. Props. Some of these are cut already, but the boxes in the suitcase is like a major component. The light one is also a major component. We'll probably do through battery powered things. And here are her plans, which have changed, which you will see in a moment. But here's like her final ground plan and then her final section, which is kind of blurry. There we go. And yeah.
Great. Yeah, it's okay. Your screen just lags a bit behind you, which is totally fine.
Great.
So it just took us a second to catch up on the section. Okay, so let's take that off because your section now that you've been working on is more in line with what we're doing. So part of the interesting part of the process here too is for student set designers and student TDs. Well, that's funky. It's a funky little curve you gave us. It's super nice. Oh. Yeah, your computer's, yeah, it's hopefully we won't crash. If you crash, it's okay. We got you covered.
Okay, great.
So it's a really interesting process for them to figure out things like sightlines and where do borders go and how many legs you have to have for sightlines. And we are starting in the large venue. So this is in the Luce Duvernay, which is our larger proscenium theater. Normally our first show is in the studio, but we've shifted things around this year. So we're going into the big theater right away. And so part of that process is to figure out how to deal with sightlines and where do borders go? What are we bordering? What are we covering? When we look at the section, we're really going to dive into that. And then also for Ava to be able to project onto a site, how much space does she need? What are her photometrics telling her for where the projectors go and all of that stuff. So the way we're going to do this, and we'll do this basically for each of the first classes for each show, is that we pull an element, we talk about one element, and here we're going to start from the ground and we'll move up. We're going to start with the floor. And we talk about that element in terms of what its material is, how are we going to build it, how are we going to paint it, how are we going to, in the sense of what are some install details, and how does that affect schedule. But also we are going to talk about how does it affect lighting, how does it affect sound, how does it affect video. The live stream, we're gonna Caitlin, I think you should add in your detail in terms of live stream when you think it matters, but we're gonna talk about that specifically on its own. And then also we're gonna make sure with Brendan, we're gonna talk about the cast. So what might be an issue around costumes? What is what about props, and what about rehearsal, and what about actors using each element that we talked about, right? So we're going to break it down that way so everybody gets a chance to have input. And sometimes you can say, yeah, it doesn't really affect me, I don't think, and that's totally fine. So you want to talk about your floor. And first of all, okay, so you're using Prush?
Prush, yes.
And what is that in English? Do we know?
No, it's just like, it's essentially like the roughest cut of wood that you can find in plank form.
Okay,
So like
but it's not barn board.
no. It's just, it's prush.
Call it Crush. Yeah.
I asked for the English term and Guillaume was like, I don't know, it's prush.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, great.
Somebody at some point will tell us what the English term is. Maybe we'll see a picture of it. But so talk to us about the detail of the floor.
Okay, so the floor itself is a like just overly large like planks of wood, like super rough cut. Just because that's a request the designer had, was to have like something that's old and timey and you can see it age. She has it like kind of in a staggered pattern, which is like very interesting. She's trying to just like, the goal of her is to be able to entrap kind of like the performers within like the one space. So she kind of has like that staggered pattern to help kind of like give them more room, but to also have like that effective like restoration and rebuilding. It used to go beyond this wall, but things are expensive now because of the pandemic.
What happened
So
with
it's
your
been a lot of like scaling back.
Yeah.
What do you mean? What happened?
What was the jump in cost from the first call to the second call?
So we originally had a certain size of prush, which I think was like 1 by 8 inches in width and then 10 feet long or 12 feet long. And that was like really cheap, like good stuff. It was like $10 a plank, which was like doable. And then Guillaume decided to call back because he was like, I feel we should reserve things just because imports aren't coming in as frequently because of the pandemic. And so like, if you want something, call and reserve it in advance kind of thing. They didn't have any of what we wanted anymore. They had a different type, like still same the kind of wood, but the dimensions are different. 1 by 6 inches by 14 feet, but now the price is now like $15.29. I just got like confirmation of the actual price today. So essentially it's over like $5 of the original estimate. So obviously that changes the budget and what we can work with. So I'm still doing those calculations because I just got that new number. But because of that, it's kind of like an adaptation of like what can we actually do, but also still preserve the overall design attempt at like the design vision of the designer. So it's been a lot of that. Last week it was a lot of just like talking to Jung-ah and being like, hey, sorry, the width kind of changed. There's nothing we can really do about it. Can you still like we can still keep the size of the floor because I feel that we cut back so much of it already. I've just felt it was justified in terms of the space she was giving us. But just kind of changed the plank so it represented the actual wood that we were getting. So she did that, and I'm super thankful that she did that. So that's kind of where we're at with that floor in terms of costing.
Right. And how are you assembling it?
So I asked Jung-ah to give me like 2 to 3 different sizes of planks that she would like cut by length. She gave me just like an overall like drawing of like the floor, and she highlighted which ones were the same length and which ones would be different, which was super helpful. And so essentially the plan for assembly is it's going to be a sheet of 3/8 ply underneath. And essentially I'm going to have my crew follow a pattern that I'm going to be developing. So they'll like work for like the first 2 sheets of ply, and they'll do that pattern and kind of staple it into those pieces of ply, remove the bottom row, add the next row, and just keep going until like they reach to the top of the floor. And so with that, it will be easier to install because the planks are already attached to something. So we can just make sure that it's lined up with our dimensions and where she wants the actual set placed, and we can just start screwing it into the floor.
Okay, great. And so let me just draw. I just want you to describe what's happening here and here, because you're going beyond the proscenium. Does everyone understand this drawing? Right, this is the proscenium arch. I can't, not my draw. This is the proscenium arch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and this is our apron. Whoa! See, it's much easier on a whiteboard. That's our apron, and that's where it drops down. But obviously, it's not going to do that for this show.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm just going to draw that way. Okay, so then on the stage left, stage right, in the back of behind the proscenium, what's going on there?
Okay, so in our theater, and I'm sure most theaters, there's a fire curtain. that comes down in case if there's a fire and we need to protect like audience members versus something on stage, or vice versa. So in order, because we have a 3/8 layer of ply plus the 1 inch of the planks on top, if those two areas didn't exist and the fire curtain fell, like it wouldn't be effective because you would have that inch and 3/8 of a gap underneath where fire can creep under, or vice versa. So essentially the compromisation that I had with Jung-Ah was asking if I would be able, or if she's able to expand that floor just so we can cover the whole basis of that fire curtain. So if it needed to drop, it would do its job.
It'll seal between
Yeah.
the front of house to the backstage and the backstage to the front of house. You always have to have that seal container. Before I forget it, we should just take that, make sure we talk to Sarah, the TD at the venue, just to go through that with him. We don't want to do that without his okay on it.
Okay.
Okay, and so I'm just going to throw out some other thoughts here. Let me just undo the drawings that I have there. That and that. Okay. Okay, so on the apron, this is just sort of practical things that we need to consider, right? We can put a lift on this, on the Prush, which Carolyn suggests maybe it's just hemlock, which she might be totally right. It might just be the type of wood instead of it being planking or barn board or something that has got a different kind of a name up. So maybe it's just hemlock. Thank you, Caroline. And we have a couple of, it's Google. Yeah, you don't have to give away your Google option. You could just say, I know, totally know what Prush is. We have an apron pipe, a lighting pipe above the apron, right? So we need to, hanging on it is not a problem, but we need to focus on it. So number one thing that I need you to think about is that with the planking down, you cannot get the lift along the edge of the front edge of the apron to focus the apron pipe. So we have to have a plan for that, which impacts how you install it, but also the schedule. So Brianna, if you want to take note of that, that whatever way that we kind of organize ourselves, there's a section of the floor, or I don't know, Tiffany, you're going to sort of have to determine what can not be there in order for us to be able to focus it. After the floor is down, we'll have to deal with notes on the apron in different ways because we won't really be able to get to it, right? Because we don't really have enough space for our lift to go. And the thought is, where are you gonna, just when you bring the lift on deck, how are you gonna get it on deck? And because you have like a 1 inch gap, and if you just ram it at that Prush, you're gonna chip away at that Prush over the course of 3 weeks, right? So how do you imagine bringing the lift on deck on a daily basis?
I was thinking of like if we can find like a piece of wood or something just to like shave it down, like to kind of have like a mini ramp, but not really have a mini ramp of some sort.
Yep.
Just so then that way we're not damaging that floor over there, and then it can safely get on there.
Totally. I think you should totally think of it as a mini ramp.
Okay, cool.
Because I mean, essentially that's what it's doing, right? It's just something you put down to get the lift on and off, and it has to ramp it. So you'll have to build one probably, and you probably want it to come upstage center, right? Seems to be the only place where you don't have a staggered pattern.
Like here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're bringing your lift in this way.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
Now I see the stage right wall. The stage left wall, is it this? Is it, and it's really, is it that? Is it more flattish?
It's like, yeah, it's this guy over here. It's just because the thickness of it has changed.
Okay.
So it was originally supposed to be a thickness about like of a foot.
Yeah.
But then Jung-Ah decided that she doesn't need it to be that thick. So we brought it down to, I believe, like 4 inches.
Okay. Okay. We'll come back to the walls. And let's just talk a bit about the paint schedule and touch-up paint schedule. Because as we talked about a couple of times, right, there's a lot of treatment on the walls, and we'll get to that, and treatment and paint takes time. So what we think the plan is for painting of the planks? Do we know how much time we think it'll take?
It will probably take them like almost a week, I'm gonna say, just
Yeah.
for like, because it at least it's like all pretty uniform and like the one like color and layers, which is fine. The thing that's that's the issue that's going to take that so much time is that it's just so much floor. I think it's about like 23 feet deep and like 35 feet wide, which is a lot. So it's going to take as many hands as.
Great. So what I need you and Brianna to do is, it's good to think that it's going to take that. I think you're probably right in the right ballpark, but you need to confirm all that with Vero. Like how many people for how many days will the floor take? And then, it's going to chip away a little bit when you install it. So try and guess at a paint call time required for that floor.
I have a meeting with Vehicle tomorrow, Jenna, so I should have answers like based on those things.
Perfect. That's great.
Thank you.
Now, I just want to hop onto things like, let's talk about lighting. So we'll stay on the floor, right? We stay in the same element and we just add in other design elements. And just if there's anything impactful for you about design or the use of this floor or the focus of your rig or lots of other things to imagine in there about the floor, Haley.
Yeah. Can I put a light on the floor? Like, is it flammable?
Well, we'll have to. It's a great question. It's also part of Vero's conversation. If you're going to add the additive to the paint in order to take it inherently, but we have to also check on Prush itself, how much inherent flame retardancy it has. It may not have any, but we should look at that. And so you're thinking, yes, you want to put something on the floor, right? Hidden by bricks?
Yeah. I hope so. That's the dream, but not the hill I will die on, but I would like to.
And do you know where and how many?
I don't know how many. I know probably along the lip of the apron pipe.
Okay.
Or not the apron pipe, sorry, the apron.
The apron, the apron along the edge of it.
Yeah, it's for Mike wants like a 1920s cabaret aesthetic for the dance scenes, and he like specifically mentioned footlights.
Okay,
So,
what I find interesting about that too is that if it's off of the planked floor, what is the look of it if it's hidden by the bricks? Because it's not on the plank floor. So if it's on the black floor, are the bricks required? We should really talk to Jung-Ah about that, about the aesthetic of that, because we don't want to just assume that, down the far downstage, right? Like in this, in this corner, she's going to want to add a bunch of bricks because it's not technically not within the picture of the set, right?
Yeah, I think the first time we had that conversation, the floor, I might be misremembering this, but I feel like the floor like covered all the apron. Did it ever?
Planking?
Am I imagining that? Yeah.
You're imagining it.
Cool.
No, it didn't. It never has covered like all of the apron, but I do remember the conversation that she had with Haley saying that if there's footlights, she would like them to be covered. But again, just double checking to make sure.
Yeah. I think it's a good conversation to have because if it's a small black instrument on the black floor, you may not need anything. Or you'll need something that is more along the lines of the black floor than it is bricks and wood,
Yeah, I don't think there'd be much issue with focus. I'm pretty good about stepping on floors. I think that'll be fine. I might trip, but
you might.
I might trip. Yeah.
We won't laugh or make fun of you.
You can. I don't mind.
You up and keep you going.
You can't, Andrea. COVID regulations.
That's right. Oh, no, I can't touch you. That's right.
Yeah.
I'll stand back and let you stand up on your own.
Thank you. That's my pedagogical journey.
Except, Haley, if you are hurt, I will go and help you.
That feels good.
I have to.
I'm excited for that.
But just keep in your mind too that anything you hang close to the walls, right? And we want to drive that lift up, even though your line sets obviously are running that way. If you hang a lamp here, getting to it might be a bit tricky, right? Because we have to drive the lift in there or in here. and the wall's going to get in the way of our legs, right? So just, it's mindful. We will figure out how to focus every lamp you put up in the air, but sometimes it's just really good for your own time management to be mindful of the things that you hang above objects that are hard to focus, hard to get to. Like I said, often the onus is not on you to move the light somewhere easier. If that is where the light has to go, put it there and we will figure out a way to focus it. That's the onus of put on production often. It's not to, again, not to pick an easier choice, but if the light has to go there, if it's a top light on that wall, you're not gonna put it back or you're not gonna put it on stage because it will no longer be a top light, right? So, but just be mindful of those two obstructions.
Wonderful. Yeah. And Tiffany,
Mhm.
do you have any information yet about the finish? Just like, is it shiny or matte? Or if you don't, it's fine. But
From what I saw from her samples, it was like pretty matte. I'll double check with her to see if there was any changes. But because she's going for kind of like the destruction, she mentioned she was kind of steering away from a glossy or shiny finish.
yeah, and I have the samples, so I'll get a flashlight and some gels and see how it takes color, I guess. But yeah, it's all I can think of right now with the floor.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, it's not super light, right? I mean, she's got some earthy tones in there, so that's good.
Oh, I don't know if this is directly about the floor. It's tangential to the floor. Because there's like behind the smaller wall, there's no floor, and then there's like floor right at the edge, but it's not in an obvious place for like safety lights, just because that step might be some stub toes. It's not really a question, just something I'm noticing that there might need to be a little extra light for that.
Yeah, or we can find a nice little fancy way to use our stage markers or something to provide a pinpoint of light that gives somebody a visual. For sure, we'll need to do that in a couple of different places.
Mhm.
Okay, anything with sound on the floor?
There was a thought had that maybe I would want floor mics, but it's gonna depend on staging, honestly. Like I need to know where they're stepping the most and where they're not stepping the most, and then I can like use that for an effect or something. But I don't just want the sounds of them going back and forth on stage constantly. Like that's not really what I'm looking for. I'm just sort of looking to foreshadow certain parts of the play. So it's a conversation that's being had, but I think it's not a priority.
Okay, and if you do get closer to it, I mean, you should do obviously your research on whether the mic should be on the plank, off the plank. What sound does somebody walking on the planking actually make, and how does it translate to the mic and the positioning of the mic? So that'd be good stuff to look into for sure.
Exactly. Yep.
Great. Video. Anything on the floor? You're not coming onto the floor direct down, are you?
No, I'm not thinking of top down. So
Okay.
I don't think there's anything with the floor that
One thing I was thinking of, because you're gonna have one front projection right on the stage left wall.
Yeah.
It's more just what video black looks like on the floor, right? Because
Yeah.
the way, depending on where you put that, you might just end up with this weird square of light. Anyway, that's completely manageable between either a dowser or the internal shutter, but just that is something that will be a factor in kind of the visual of the projector itself rather than just the design.
Right.
But when we get to that stage left wall, we'll talk about the position of that front projector.
Yeah.
Great. So Brandon, what do you think, just in terms of cast and costumes, props, impacts of this type of floor?
Yes, I haven't seen the specific planks, but my question would be if the actors are barefoot, if there's going to be sliver risks. I don't recall any barefoot specifically from the costume finals, but I would want to double check that and follow up.
Yeah.
And then of course, what is the finish going to be? They're going to be potentially doing choreography on it. So there's always that conversation around, is the floor slippy? Are the shoes slippy? Is it slippy? Is it not slippy? And then I was also wondering about if there's a crack between the floorboards, how great that is, and if there's any super pointy stiletto shoes, which I also didn't specifically clock in the finals, but I would want to double check that if there's a risk of them slipping in there. And it's a very small gap anyway, but that could throw them off potentially.
I think what is a really good thing for you to do, because you're right that it's stage choreography can really be fine in rehearsal, but then because it is rough sawn, rough hewn wood, it might actually really impact the costumes in a way that you need to anticipate, in the sense that there's a lot of choreography on their knees on rough sawn wood that actually will affect the costume, right? Because you might end up ripping or wrecking the knee of a costume. So there's nothing for you to do to fix that. The expectation really is that you should have a sample of a plank of that floor in rehearsal, so that Mike can see it and Rebecca, who's doing the movement, can see it, because it will change. You don't want that to be a surprise when they move on stage, right? Because they will have to change at that point, and you might as well give them the information early on, so that they really, because seeing the model is one thing, but seeing a piece of rough sawn wood is different. Ideally painted or with paint on it, because that does change it. And maybe it's not as rough as I have in my brain, because all I can think of is barnboard, but I know it's not barnboard.
Barnboard.
But you're right. You land on your knees on that kind of wood, and you do that 15 times. All of a sudden, you've got a wear spot on the knee and maybe a hole, right?
Yeah. And the other thought I had
about shoes as well, about anything that socks or barefoot.
Yeah. And I had the same thought as Haley around potentially, that step up's an 1 3/8 inches, I think. So it's not a step, but it's potentially a thing to catch if it's not, depending on the lighting situation and if it's not clearly marked or whichever. You probably don't want like a giant strip of white gaff along all the edges of the floor. That's probably going to be too obvious, but I like, the stage marker conversation or
yeah, totally. What's really interesting about that as part of the conversation is that now we get into the difference between control and working with actors who are common sense people, right? Sometimes, you give them a handle that they just pull is one thing. You give them a handle that they have to turn, like any door, a handle they have to turn to open. Sometimes people will say, well, I can't turn that handle and open the door in the middle of a scene. And you're gonna go, well, it's just a regular door handle. So what is, then sometimes it's just about a conversation around what is a normal thing to expect. If there is a raise, you just are super aware of it. We point out what we can, but you're right, we're not going to put a big piece of white tape across the top of that, because that changes the aesthetic of it. But it really is awareness on their part of anybody on that stage to understand that that is there, and that they need to recognize that and make sure that that's part of how they interact with the set, right? So yes, we do what we can, but we don't go overboard in the sense of trying to control every possible thing that could happen at that lip or on any other part of the stage. I'd say it's sort of the same question I had about the note exchange you guys had yesterday about the bricks and the planks, because there are bricks and planks scattered around. Some of the bricks will be in like attached together, right, Tiffany?
So I'm just essentially what my next steps are going to be is that I have her final ground plan, and I just want to create just like general like blobs of those things.
Yeah.
And I wanted to send it to her and Mike to kind of like make sure that they're both on the same page of like the main areas of those bricks, and if not, how will they adjust them. But essentially the direction I want to go in, because I know that she has drawn a lot of individual brick as well, is that I don't want any loose bricks on the floor. Just because I like tripping hazard, and also like just the unpredictability of in case an actor kicks something and like it just lodges somewhere and it might just change their energy, and I kind of want to avoid that as much as possible.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to mention it, because again, I think that's again a measure of control. Mm-hmm. and that we do, what we have to be careful about is that maybe they do need single bricks on stage. Yeah. And if they do, then we have to figure out how to maintain the safety of it and how to work with it, right? Rather than kind of going at, you can't have single bricks on the floor. Really, the approach would be, if you need it, then we just need to talk about it so that the use of it is what you need, but also some risk is mitigated, right? So
Right.
again, it's just the approach is not wrong, but just to soften it a bit, that is, let them discover what they need.
Mhm.
Let them discover what actually do they need a brick. And if they need a brick, they need a brick, right? And then track what happens to that brick. Does it end up in the middle of the floor in a blackout? Okay, now we talk about maybe we could avoid that. But is it always downstage left? Somebody picks it up, uses it, and then it goes back? Ultimately, that alone is not that risky, right? So it's about the discovery happening and then working with the actual detail of what they've discovered. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the same with the planks too, right? And I think you said you want to know how they move things around so you can redraw it. And I feel like you'd be chasing a drawing every week because they're going to change that every week in rehearsal, right?
Oh, no, yeah. I like for the planks, because I know they're going to be mobile. So that's why I like mentioned, I was just like, if you want them, like if you want me to draw out the planks, I will. But also just keep in mind that it's bound to change because Mike hasn't had time to actually work with those things yet.
100%.
So.
There's no reason for you to draw it on the ground plan, but it's a reference. I mean, it's really for Jean to reference where everything should start. And then Brendan will track how things change. And where they are in the week, he'll have them spiked and mapped out where they are in the first week, and it'll change in the second week. And it'll change when you put them on stage and the actors come on stage, it's going to change again. That's what we'd like to embrace, that it'll just continually be a shifting perspective in the sense of what needs to change in order for the stage action to happen. And what the first day on stage for actors is always a lot of discovery, right? This is different than the rehearsal hall. This is, I can't do this like I did up there because this is here. So where can I put this instead? And that's that first 3 or 4 days is a lot of that conversation. But it's really good with John not to nail down what they start with and how it's going to be tracked, what gets added or what gets deleted. Obviously, a lot of that is Brendan giving us notes from rehearsal. So. Okay, let's move on then to the stage left wall, stage right wall. Which one do you want to look at? Stage right. Let's do stage right, the bigger of the two.
Okay. So yeah, she's a big boy. She's like 21 feet long.
Do you have do you have her drawing? We can just look at the detail of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's the presentation? So it's this guy over here.
Yeah, great.
The height has changed. I was sent an email yesterday in regards to that. The overall height of it is going to be 10 feet, so a foot shorter. But there might be some peaks and points where it reaches up to 11 feet. So depending on that, so that's the detail of it. There's 2 door frames and 1 window that we're working with. And yeah, there was an original concept where she wanted these jail gates to slide out, to kind of cover the door frame, the window, et cetera, but just with budget, also with time, I just it was kind of just like, because she added the wooden boxes as a later concept. So it was kind of just like, which concept would you like more? Because I only have the budget for one or the either kind of currently. Yeah. And she said that she preferred the boxes. So she and Mike mentioned during a meeting that it's a discussion that they can have with lighting, or perhaps like video of some sort, to see if they can still get the same effect and aesthetic without actually having the physical bars there. Okay. So I thought we came to a pretty good conclusion from that. And the material for it, so the structure is just like the actual structure of it is 3/4 ply. The top of it is 3/8 ply, just because Guillaume and I thought that from the amount of bricks that we're going to be attaching to it, Luan would be just too thin for it. So we went with the 3/8 ply instead. On the stage, like the furthest downstage wall, Of that structure, the material is changed. It's no longer 10 test. It's going to be foam, like 2-inch foam, just because it's more of like a crumbling effect rather than the brick effect. So that is going to be added, as well as for the depths of the door frame and the window frame will be there. And yeah, and I think there's like 3 different thicknesses of brick. I'm just waiting for Jenna to get back to me in terms of the sizes of that, and if she has like certain sections of this wall where she would want those certain thicknesses to be added.
You're building
But
the bricks that are
now I know that I'll be
applied.
working with 3 different.
The bricks that are applied to the
Mhm.
front door, you're building them out of 10 test, right? Different sizes.
Yes,
So they're made and will be painted to look like brick.
yes.
And then you talked about the foam. Well, it's going to be carved away to look more like parging or concrete. That's not the way. I guess the questions for you to kind of go into the next week are what covers that foam, because they're going to have to cover it with something in order for it to be paintable and to start to look like something other than cut foam. And yeah, again, it's about time in the paint shop, right? I assume you're applying all the bricks to the wall in the carpentry shop and then sending the sections of wall to paint.
Yeah, that's the original plan. I want to double check with Verlo and Guillaume to like see like if they have like another idea, or if Verlo prefers to have it a certain way as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you want the whole wall together, which would
Yeah,
be
or yeah,
the life a bit easier, right? To be able to paint it as one unit
yeah,
rather than 3 or 4 separate units. Yeah.
yeah. So
Timing, there's a lot of that has to do with timing though. And I just want you to fully understand what material she's using, how much parging, how much concrete, how much of a material that is hard and chippable is she actually applying to the wall. So it's really important for you to understand that, because it can affect how you move it up to the deck. If it gets beaten up a little bit too much in the process of installing it, then you've got a bigger paint call than normal. And you got to protect the floor to keep all that concrete off the floor. I mean, you got to keep all the paint off the floor, but your setup for a paint call that big gets quite substantial if you have a lot to do.
that's good.
And timing of it, and when do we do timing of it? Brianna, this is what we talked about before. Is it a Sunday call? Can it be a Sunday call? Do we just
Yeah.
Right. So Brianna and I are in the middle of trying to talk through that as well, without any real answer to that yet, right?
Yeah.
Can you go back to her drawing?
Which one? Like
The PDF one.
this, that's that boy.
It's coming.
Do you want the?
Yeah, there you go.
It's not there yet.
So how many pieces is the wall going to be split into from moving from the carpentry shop to the deck?
I believe I have it in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think I have it in 10 pieces.
Oh, in 10 pieces. So there's some capping on top and some the uprights and yeah.
So I think across it's just like the 1, 2, 3, 4, like 6 across. Then I have the 2 like side walls that acts as jacks, like jack support, and then I have 2 more here for the depth of the door that she wants, but also jack support. And then on top of it, there's just like sheets of 3/8 ply, so she can layer 10 test on top for that stuff. But they're cut so it's attached to each individual wall. It's not combined. So yeah.
Great. So the like this 2.5. What's the return? We're 2.5 feet.
The outer walls, the 2 outer walls here is about 3 feet. The inner jacks are about 1.5 to 2 feet.
Okay, so that's how you get the depth of the wall, is these returns that you're adding in to jack up the wall, but also to
Exactly.
look like depth. Okay.
And then for the window as well, like we're not building a jack, we're just going to be attaching 3/8 ply to kind of give it the depth. So we're just saving money. We just have the actual section. We're just not building a full thing for it.
Okay, and so how is it sitting on the deck? Is it just the jacks and weighted jacks?
Yes.
Okay, And so you're gonna have things you'll have to think about are if an actor leans on something or runs into something, that nothing moves, nothing has the opportunity to be dislodged,
Mhm.
fall over, all of those fun things.
Mhm.
Yeah, so just keep, I would like to see the structure drawn at some point, what you're doing, and if you're doing, I mean, you could do walkthrough jacks, which would allow you, an actor to kind of walk through, but still provides framing and structure to the wall, but I'm sure it's already built into the actual, what you're building, right? The actual.
Yeah.
jack.
Yeah, it's built in. I actually have like a completed drawing for it, so I can like send it to you later if you want
That'd
it.
be great. All that kind of stuff is good for me
Yeah.
to have. And the stage left wall, is it on another page here?
It's this bad boy
Is
here.
that, okay. And so how does, so that one is just a brick with a little bit of some other treatment on the top to take image, right?
Yeah, so it's a mixture of the brick and then the foam to build the thickness and a bit of the destruction on top. And yeah, so essentially the plan that we had is I think we built this in like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like 7 pieces in total just to get the height.
Yeah.
And then we essentially right angled 3/8 ply on all of them. And essentially Jenga is gonna stencil out that the shape that she wants, and then my crew is gonna jigsaw it.
Okay.
And that stuff. And then she also has a plan for the foam additions and where she wants to put it on that structure. So I'll also make sure that I have a copy of that for my crew in case if it's like something they're helping with as well.
Totally. Yeah, what you don't want to end up having is that Junga bears the brunt of the physical work. So as much as she plans and prepares and is able to hand you, you're exactly right. Whatever she can hand you that you can pass on means that frees her up for painting as well, because otherwise her workload is just way too much.
Yeah.
We have people to do this work for her. So, and how does that wall stand up?
Jacks as well. Guillaume is providing jacks. He has like a bunch of like pre-built jacks for just like if we need them for something.
Yeah.
So I think we're using a total of 2, maybe 3 jacks for the back of that wall.
Okay. Can you go back to your
Because it's only like
ground plan?
Yeah.
It's fun to watch the genie effect go super slow. It's not for you, but for us, it's kind of, it stalls at 2 different spots as it's genie down to its dock.
We know when it's there.
So where's the edge of the wall? Can you just put your cursor where the edge of the on stage edge of the wall is?
It's here.
It's there. And is this is our fire? So we're not seeing anybody on the house left or house right, right? Okay.
Pardon?
So, no, I can't. How am I going to do this? Okay, let's just try something here. I'm going to try something that's going to be super rough.
Okay.
Just bear with me.
Okay. Cool.
Go away. Okay, so
Do it, Andrea.
put your cursor back where the edge of the wall is. Sorry, I lost where it is. Is the edge of the wall? The edge of the wall is here or there? There, right? Okay.
It's here. It's where my cursor is.
Okay, so yours is gonna have to. Oh God, it's terrible. I can't do it. See, this is where. Do it. Never mind. I can use the green sightline. So the green sightline, I can't do it. I just like mushy, stupid COVID. Okay, just highlight this green line, the sightline.
This guy?
Okay, so that's close enough. I think it's actually for the masking, but it actually is hitting the wall. You're just gonna have to, obviously, you have that sightline for your jacks as well, right?
Mhm.
So you do jack like here, because you've got no sightline issue there in the middle, and then this one has to be inset or on an angle or something,
Mm-hmm.
so we don't see it. And I know he's not gonna do this, but there's a question of does anybody interact with that wall from behind? So Brendan, that's just a note for you. That's not really necessarily possible, or it will be in between the jacks, but not where the jack is.
Mhm.
Maybe it's not necessary. And I think you should be really wise to mark out the depth of that jack and give that to Brendan so he can tape it out. So that they
Great.
don't think that they constantly can kind of run right at the back of that wall to come on stage.
Okay.
They have to go around something. And the same if there's anything sticking out on the stage right wall as well.
Mhm.
It's really good for Brendan to know that and to know what it is and to help them navigate that. So again, it's not a surprise.
Mhm.
Avoiding surprises with the cast on stage is super important. What is this? That's a leg. I mean, that's a leg. At the edge of the leg.
Yes. So for oh my god, sorry, I just moved your thing. Let me move it back for you. So it's just the proposition that Jungga like had. I'm just gonna I like had a chat with her and I'm just gonna like readjust it because she like gave me like her starting point of where she wants them, or like on stage point of where she wants it.
Yeah.
So it will be adjusted for the version 2.
Can you go to your front front elevation, because it doesn't make any sense for actually our view of the stage, right?
Oh my god, I hate
it. It doesn't make any sense. Can you highlight that leg?
I can try.
I can do it from the top. Just click on the. Yeah, you see it?
Oh no. Yeah.
Okay, the rendering is great. If you do the rendering,
like,
keep that great. Do you see my point? Is that can you just zoom in a bit?
Oh god, it's like the opposite of AutoCAD. Okay.
Is exactly the so there's this wall and this leg right behind it.
Yeah.
And then here, the visual is cut off by the leg. I mean, it makes no sense. I mean, the leg should be out here, right? So that's not not visually cutting off. There's no space in and around that wall, right?
Yep.
So maybe on the sightlines, it's an easy do with the sightlines, but it doesn't make any sense for the need of the set. So we might have to put it in another. And now go back to your ground plan.
Yeah.
You might have to take out those legs or pull them back to just in line with the proscenium or something, and
Yeah.
you might have to put another set of legs upstage, which is going to affect Haley and so that's so we should so this guy should come. Nothing should really. This one should be here. Oh, Tiffany.
I was like, why do you have a line in the middle? I'm like, I'm not putting a leg there.
You put the leg right in the middle of the proscenium arch.
I was like, no.
Yeah, so this one, I mean, if it's here, it's on top of the wood, right? It really should be here to have the cleanest look outside of the footprint, because there is a view to it. And then this one, technically actually should be the same, it should be there.
Yeah.
So in and above the set, there's a really, and then this should be the same here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so it's something that I like talked to Shauna yesterday about it. So she said, okay, like this is the proposal that she has. She said that she thinks that the next best step for me, it would be to do just kind of like an updated suggestion. And to just kind of like, because I know Mike also wants to explore the idea of masking in the first week of rehearsal. So kind of like send Jungga's masking proposal, and then also be like, I also have a suggested proposal to help with like sight lines and things, if you wanted to take a look at it. But obviously,
you can do all kinds of things with this, right? You can move this one upstage and then do a little return to clean up that one sight line there, and then this one can be there. That one's okay. That one probably scoots by okay, and this one maybe can come out a little bit to clean up this sight line. So that's your last one up here, right? And that's mostly for the psych and the scrim.
Yes.
Good. And it really, okay, so we'll get to video in a second. Sorry, I kind of jumped from the walls right to masking. Sorry, I'm jumping around a bit. I apologize. But this is kind of important in terms of all of that. So anyway, just going to draw in a suggestion for you that you might just kind of think about. Maybe this leg 3, it's really leg 1, sorry, leg 1. This is too far and this gap is too small for actors to go through. What's the distance between where the hard legs? The hard legs aren't drawn. The hard legs should be in it, shouldn't they? This is the hard border 1.
Border 1, hard border.
Okay, so then those are then the hard legs will be there, right? Do we leave the hard legs in?
Do we usually?
Yeah.
Okay, so
otherwise you have to put a leg in there, but you need something. You need the 2 legs furthest downstage to the proscenium arch. You need them, or you have some sideline issues. But the hard legs are super tight to the arch too. Are they?
Okay.
They're really easy to use as long as she hasn't brought that border in too low, but I don't think she really can.
No, I don't think so. Okay.
Release, take away all my marks. Oh, or I'll make some more marks. I'm so good at this.
Yeah, and while we're on the topic of masking, I was actually going to ask about that one leg, because I want to try and put monitors up there for the cast, and
Downstage,
like,
downstage behind the back of the cross.
yeah, like on currently it's like somewhere after the legs and border on 20 and 21.
Okay.
But I'm just looking at the dispersion right now, and it's like, yeah, I'm gonna have to do a little bit more zhuzhing and angling, but that those borders go in so much that, like, you know, my
Yeah.
or
Well,
yeah, the legs were going in so much
yeah.
that, like,
I mean, I think what's and this is, you know, it's genre is learning how what sightlines are, and I think what she didn't do was to kind of give herself the front view to understand. Although I could be wrong, maybe she does like that, but I would be surprised if that's what she imagined seeing. So I think, Tiffany, do a next version, and I would suggest to you that the number, and it's called 9 legs, but it really should be legs 2. The hard leg should be legs 1. On 9 should be legs 2. We should number the legs in terms of.
Oh, sorry. No, that's just for the line set number. So I'll just like change it.
Yeah, we just call them border 1, border 2, just so we know when we get to talking about them, we have a common language, because we're not going to know this line set 9. So maybe instead of on 9, they go to 11 or 12 or something. And anyway, play around with something, and I'll look at it really, really specifically for legs to give you some feedback on that. The ones that I think are mostly about Ava and the video are the psych legs.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just come back to the walls for a second. So we're going to come back to the walls, and we're going to go back to the psych again, and we'll go back to the psych again when we get to video. So with the walls, I'm going to start with Brendan, just in terms of rehearsal. What do you need in rehearsal to duplicate those walls? How are they going to interact? When they start to interact with them and they don't have the walls, what do you think the impact is going to be about that?
Yeah, I mean, they are sort of the major set component. So, you know, Mike's interested certainly in having them taped in rehearsal, just to understand where they are, that they're not walking through them. And his initial thought was for blocking that it wasn't necessary to have a representation of the walls in rehearsal, and then was thinking a bit about COVID and the need to space people 6 feet apart, and that perhaps the wall, like, you know, if we've got this big structure, like, you know, they're not going to be breathing on each other if they're on the other side of the wall, so that having a representation would help us to understand that and what's possible from a COVID perspective, as well as potentially having them physically closer than 6 feet if there's a barrier.
Yeah,
that's preventing that transmission.
I want to understand what you mean. So I'm just going to draw the doorway here. So you think, like, if maybe somebody was here and speaking this way, that somebody could be here and they could physically be closer than 2 meters, but the wall is the barrier between them. That kind of thing, is that what you mean? It's like I've just drawn like 2 male figures, but I have not.
There's circles and then there are arrows facing.
That is part of what, you know, facing the same way is safer than 2 people facing each other, right?
That's my understanding. I mean, you know, as you're questioning this, I'm perhaps realizing that I don't have as deep an understanding as maybe I thought I did when Mike and I originally discussed this, but this is that was my thinking.
Yeah.
Yes.
When you wrote that, that was, I thought, oh, am I going to comment on it? But I think, no, I guess it makes sense that you could have people kind of feel like they're talking through a doorway. You could kind of fake it given the angle of the wall, but they could be closer than 2 meters, but there was a barrier between them. That for me is how you use that, not that the wall actually has to be a barrier to the actor. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't entirely sure what was maybe meant by the wall being, actors being able to be closer than 2 meters. And it's okay not to know. It's totally fine not to know. I just am,
right. I mean, I'm not overly clear on it, but I guess thinking about, like, and maybe this is more like if they're behind the wall and not visible, but if that helps, like from a spacing perspective,
Yeah.
maybe it's not even that they're in the scene, because he's also interested in having everyone on stage for the whole show, but that they're not all necessarily in every scene. And so maybe that, maybe that's a fix if we're I'm concerned that, I haven't done this check, but I'm concerned that maybe one of the things that might be an issue is having 13 people all 6 feet apart on stage at the same time
They will not
on
fit.
the set. I'm concerned about that fitting. And so
Yep.
maybe the wall, maybe people being behind the wall, or I don't know. I don't actually have the answer.
I
But
think what would
those are
be
things that
really
we're thinking
smart.
about.
Yeah, what's really smart in terms of that, I think you and Brianna need to do what Tiffany's doing now. And let's just take that off of Tiffany's plate, because right now Tiffany's got a massive amount of things to do. But I think the onus could be on the two of you to take the drawing and actually do that. I mean, that's what we're doing everywhere, right? Is drawing somebody standing in a 6-foot box or a 6-foot circle. What does that mean? And how many of these can you put on stage? You're not going to get 13 on.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so then you're talking about a whole other kind of, the wall cannot block all of that stuff. And especially since the wall has got gaps and windows and doors, right? So I think that in the next week, that's a really smart exercise. And I think you and Brianna should do that, because for you, it's about how the rehearsal is going to run. And for Brianna, it's about the protocols, right? Because that's a lot of what Brianna's going to be monitoring, is what protocols are we need to make more robust, and what do we not know, and how do we need to approach each of these conversations. So I think you need to do that together.
Great. Yeah, we'll do that.
Look at it with Mike, because he may not be able to have all 13. And he's just going to have to adjust to that. I know he will, but let's give him the information.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else with the walls for you?
Well, you mentioned the idea of the depths of the jacks in terms of a taping, if they're passing behind the walls. That sort of information will be really helpful for us to have and understand in rehearsal, just in terms of pathways. And obviously this information is there, but just in terms of the width of them, me understanding that. We've already talked about the stability of the walls in terms of can we lean on them, can we touch them? And I think this is probably less of a concern, but I also had the same thought around the finish of it. If they pass closely to it in costumes, like I'm not sure if I totally understand what the finish of the 10 test brick is going to be, and if that's a catching on costume challenge, or maybe it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Those are some thoughts I had.
Before we go too far away from the wall, we sort of went past maybe the deck in the sense of what's interactive on the stage. I mean, that's another thing that we really have to develop a protocol about, really, is we already have it in the sense of touching something and moving it. And then nobody else touches that thing and moves it, right? It is your plank to touch and move. But how do you track that? How do you work that into the stage business? If the planks are being used to build tables and beds, if another actor is building the bed for an actor to play on, what does that actually mean? And we just have to really, I don't have an answer for that right now, but I just think that is really how we have to start thinking. I think everybody has their own suitcase, right? So
yes,
right.
But
And
I
so,
think there's at this point, I think there's only 8 boxes. So either there's 8 people assigned to those boxes and 5 of them won't have boxes, or maybe if they can't all fit on stage, can they exit, hand sanitize, go move a box, exit, re-hand sanitize? I don't know.
That's all the tracking. It's okay not to know. There's no way for you to know, but that is the way to think about it, is if somebody else does have to move that box, what do they have to do before they move that box? What does anybody have to do before they move anything on stage? And what does it mean for somebody to use somebody else's suitcase? Right? It's kind of crazy to be thinking this way, because we kind of want the freedom to just be able to develop stage business according to dramaturgical choices, but that we don't have that luxury. And the onus is on us to make sure that we stay within this conversation and that it's really, really adhered to. That's how we continue to work, right?
Yeah.
What
is the number of, since we're sort of on this, Andrea, I think the last I heard was there's 7 loose planks. Is that the correct number? Is that in conversation? Is that moving? Maybe this is a Tiffany question.
In conversation, I'm waiting for the number and the length of them. So once I know those things, then you'll be the first to know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then the masking, just in terms of masking for you, I mean, you'll have our first proposal, which won't be what Jung already said it, I don't think. And then if we have to adjust, we have to adjust. But the thing about it being flexible is that there's a limit to how flexible it can be. In terms of allowing Haley and Aurora and Ava to do their work with the stage picture that they need. So if you start moving legs and borders, that impacts Haley quite a bit.
Yeah, and along with Mike also wanting to discover like masking in the space, he already made it clear that it's something that it will be in discussion with all those designers as well. So just
it has to happen early.
Yeah,
it happened after finals are in, right? In the last week of rehearsal. Then we have it can't mean not say it can't.
Yeah.
It can if it's if we can do it. But if it actually changes something that we don't have time to change, then that has to be part of that conversation as well.
Yeah, I gave he asked for a deadline, so I said, "Is the first week of rehearsal enough time for you?" And he said, "Absolutely, I'll take it." Great. So, yeah.
Okay, great.
Oh, just for
So Haley, do you want to talk about the walls or masking?
Sure. Yeah, so I guess with masking, one day I'd like to know, that would be cool, but whenever. I might, if it's that first week of rehearsal, maybe I don't have any booms on my prelims, and that's okay. People can live with that. With the wall, how far is it from that giraffe? The big wall?
Like from like what's the giraffe?
There's like, I think it's that little I-beam. Is that what it is? There's like ladders on each side.
The torm. It's the torm pipe.
The torm. Sorry, not giraffe.
Is this the torm? Which one's the torm?
No.
I don't know which.
It's like on the proscenium edge.
Yeah, it's right here.
Circle it.
Down here.
Where is it?
It's kind of in the kutoi, so it's kind of here, I think, something like that.
Like here?
Oh, Tiffany!
Sorry.
Here.
It's like here.
There, it's a big pipe. It's a huge pipe in there. Something like that.
Okay.
The I-beam.
Aurora just did it. Yeah.
Where in that scribble is a torm.
Okay.
So Tiff did not, I guess.
I can't.
Okay. Undo. So there's that pipe. Yes, the torn pipe. You want to hang on that. It's a great position.
It's like.
Oh. You want to know. You want to know what the distance is. No.
Yeah, just because I know Mike was saying
this distance on the ankle.
Yeah.
Oh, try that again.
Yeah, because they might not be able to go out that way if you have things that are at their height.
Yeah, because I know Mike was talking a lot about using the texture of the wall, and that's, I mean, there's other angles I could get texture, but for like a nice side shot, trying to see how I could get that, and the torm would be the only way. But I think I would have to have it above their heads.
Yeah, but Haley, also too, if you really need it, and we're getting into a problem here with terms of space. We can put a pipe further back and get your lamp here. You know, and scoot behind and shoot past the I-beam. We can do that if instead of, I think it ends up being kind of in here the other way, so it's close, not exact, but you could do in a pinch if we find it gets really crunchy in there for space.
Yeah, and I've seen from the back, I could probably do that from a line set, or maybe on the floor. There's enough space back there. I could hide it with probably somewhere. Just thinking about how to hit the wall. And then I'll find the most inconvenient top positions for you.
How to come back through the wall, like a backlight, a die back through the wall?
Yeah, through the door and the window. Yeah. It's not necessarily a thought I've had yet, but it was in Jung's like lighting proposal, so I'm keeping it in the back of my head.
No, I think it's could be great.
Yeah. Other than that, they're nice walls. Lovely. I'll try not to burn them.
you.
Before I forget to say it, so the downstage border needs its legs upstage of the border. Legs too here need a border.
Yep.
We don't
Yep.
tend to put the legs in with border.
Yep.
And there's that gap. Yeah, I'm just wondering here too, if the scrim could come where the legs are, the legs can go where if those two can flip. Just wondering if that's a better stacking of the border scrim
Sorry.
leg psych instead of border legs scrim psych. Just in terms of visually, might be cleaner
So instead of
because we don't see the end.
psych legs scrim.
Well, if we don't ever see the edge of the scrim, and we're not ever going to see the scallop, and we're covered with the leg downstage. But if we're not, we have to do legs in front of the scrim so that we don't see the edge of either. But sometimes it can be really great to do the scrim legs psych if it can clean it up a little bit. Not always. It really depends on sightlines, and you don't ever want to be in a situation where you start to see the unwanted edge of the black scrim.
I'll play around with it and see what we can get out of it.
So Haley, are you lighting the psych?
Yeah, definitely. So I definitely have the it's Ryan's in the air and the other one's on the ground.
Ryan's are on the ground.
Yes.
Ryan's on the ground. Cool. Ryan's are on the ground, and what's in the air? What are the big guys in the air?
Iris like cells.
Irises.
Yeah, Iris, four bangers, the four stacked. Yeah.
Christian had them flipped for burning vision, and I've never. It's messed me up for the rest of my life.
They're pretty far back from where the psych is now, but you can't move them. We don't have time to move them.
Yeah.
In a good year, we don't have time to move them. In a COVID year, we definitely don't. So just take a look what that means. Do you want a ground row?
Yeah, if is that an actor pathway back behind the psych?
Yeah, we will have to have a crossover.
Cool. So we'll live with it. Like I think, especially if the irises are far back, it'd be good to have the Orions. I know they are like they can be a big time sink though.
Yeah, but we're gonna have to put a ground row, hard ground row, at the bottom of the psych. So that really needs to be talked to Jonna about.
Yeah.
Because it does if the look of the psych doesn't go all the way to the floor, but you're adding in the ground row, hard ground row to hide the source of the ground row lights, then somebody needs to talk Jonna through that. Show her on a section.
What is a hard ground row?
It's the little flat. Because if you just put the ground row in and we see the psych to the floor, you're just going to see the lights.
Yeah.
Right? So you ground row the bottom so that you see a hard edge, like you do with the border at the top. You see a hard edge, the ground row lights up the psych. But it does change the look of the psych because now you've got a black edge, a black border edge on the bottom.
Yeah, Andrea.
Differently. Yes, Amelia. Yeah.
Does that go in front of the psych or behind the psych?
It could do either, but generally it's better in front.
Yeah, okay, cool. Because if it's behind it, then I feel like that might change or affect how I'm shooting at it. So
I mean it's better in front because then it's a nice clean edge and you see black instead of potentially being seen the psych and the shadow of black, right?
Yeah.
With the scrim, maybe sometimes you can put it behind and it mitigates that, but the safest bet is to put it in front.
Yeah, no, I'm a proponent of putting it in front.
Okay.
Right. And even if that doesn't work, I can probably, if I know that doesn't work early, I can plan for something else.
I mean, here, hang on. Look, I gotta come over here. Look what I'm gonna do.
I can't look. You know I can't look. Don't ask me to look.
Right? So, psych. We talked about the scrim. The scrim right now, that's the scrim, the leg, right? And so you've got your psych lights there. You want to do your ground row here. So you would tend to put the little ground row there. This is your stage floor. Okay, so that you see that there's a nice clean edge there, and then your border. Where's the border in there? It's down here, right? This is the border?
Yeah, it's before the set of legs.
Okay, so Ava, your sight line up is going to be hopefully okay from the first row. where the border is? Because the border, I don't know, how far away is the border from the site?
It is 2'8".
Okay. Okay, well, we'll just have to look at that in this section and see what happens here with that sight line. And then also what happens here with the sight line, because you know your floor is on the thing. I can't remember how high our ground room is. Maybe it's only 18 inches. It's pretty low, I think. It's a little flat. I think it's 18 inches. We got a couple of them, but I think we have a low one. And the lower it is, then as well, you know, your sight line from the middle of the house, you'll always see it. You won't ever see the bottom of the sign. And then Ava, you're coming back here, right? You're doing the rear projection.
Yeah, rear projection.
So staying on the rear, well, you added a lot of pipes.
Taking them away, taking them away.
So the thing for you to remember, Ava, is that back there, we need a crossover. Partly for the live stream, because we do want a live stream around the back, which we'll get to, but also for actors to not have to go in weird places and cross each other, and lots of space for them to move around back there. Space is key. So I'm just wondering what you're thinking in terms of your shot.
Right now I'm thinking of having 2 Panasonics on the furthest back line set that I can get that are blending together to get that shot. I initially tried to like have a Christie on the ground or like on a riser shooting straight on, but it doesn't fill enough of the picture for me. So I'm looking at having 2 of the Panasonics on a line set.
On the line set, okay.
Yeah.
So the line set doesn't take you as so your photometrics are going to tell you if you can do that, right? Because the line set is further downstage than tucking something right at the back wall. So it'll be interesting to see what your photometrics tells you.
Yeah.
So yeah, because you'd end up being here with your projector instead of back here.
Exactly. Well, and I tried like with the Christie, I did a bunch of photometrics to like have it on the ground or have it up on the catwalk or on a line set, but even like it just doesn't have a wide enough lens for me to do it. It doesn't get the coverage I want. So
we've done it up here before on the catwalk.
Yeah.
It's a funky angle, lots of weird corrections required, but we have to put it up there.
Yeah, I know. I was looking at it, but with this proposed masking plan, like if it's up there on the catwalk, it gets the right height. But then as I was talking to Amelia, my coach, she was talking about how much distortion I would get on the bottom because it's shooting at that angle. And so it would be a lot of time fixing that versus if I have 2 projectors, it should be good. I just have to blend.
I mean, I'm just also wondering if all those, oh no, there's a gap. That's our gap in the line set. So I'm wondering if they can move closer to the border, but no, that's the gap. I mean, if everything has to kind of tuck downstage a little bit more, we can look at that, but.
Yeah, I want to try not to make that happen, but I'm going to work on the photometrics for that and see how it looks.
Okay, great. So you do that. Can you go back to, so let's just see. Yeah, so she's missing a border in this section, right? She needs a border in front of the leg. So, and that's the hard border. It looks like it's drawn as this one is drawn as a masking. Oh, Jesus. Annotating. Drawn as masking, but that's actually the hard border, this one. That is
What's that?
That's the one in front of the.
That's the red one, isn't it?
The red one.
Yeah.
That's the hard one. And then there'll be hard legs behind. Let's do that. And then we need a border here.
Okay.
Try. It's actually really hard to draw a straight line without a ruler or just a mouse. Okay.
Okay.
Great. Okay, go back to your ground plan. And Ava, anything else about projection or on that wall? Like, where are you coming from for the wall?
What I'm thinking for the stage left wall, I don't know if you remember I think it was Nell Gwynn, Christian had a Panasonic like on a boom it was by the house right box seats, but I'm thinking the house left box seats.
Yeah.
So it's just a straight on shot to the stage left wall.
So here,
Tiffany's got her mouse kind of close from what I can see.
That was actually a really nice position, wasn't it?
Yeah.
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 it was from this position.
He had that funky
Yeah.
angle coming from the offstage as well, but you don't have a 3D object like he did.
No, it's just flat. So I think that's my best bet for it.
Okay. It's pretty far for lumens, but
Mhm.
yeah. The more
Yeah,
help
we'll see.
Jonah can give you to lighten that area up, I think it's going to be helpful because it's just the top, like you're going to do, it's just mostly the top of that wall. Is that right?
Yeah, I need to look at the dimensions of the wall further, but it's like I'm filling it with like maybe 2 to 3 lines of text at most at a time. So
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else for you for video for anything we've kind of touched on?
Nope, that's the two things. Although I mean, this is jumping way ahead to like operator position and like where Drew might be sitting. I don't know if there's like guidelines around how many people we can have in the booth.
There is, yeah.
There is, okay.
We need 3 in the booth, so that kind of kicks Drew out.
Mhm.
This would be lights, sound. Oh no, I guess no.
Well, the sound could be outside.
Yeah, so actually, it's possible that he can go in the booth
Mhm.
because there's enough space for 3.
Yeah.
And because
then
Julian for live stream is going to be in the house as is.
Okay, cool.
As is sound, right? So
Great. Yeah, that was my question, is where would Julian be opting for live stream? But yeah, I could have Drew backstage or I could have him in the booth.
And you know what, given kind of what we're going through here, I know we go through a lot of work sometimes to get the long runs secure, to hide the operator.
Mhm.
I mean, if you want to put him in the seating opposite of the live stream, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
The whole
Cool.
new world here. Let's just try and do what we need to do for pedagogically and keep that the priority. And if it means he's in the house, that just makes it super fun for more people.
Hey.
So
Drew gets to be where he wants to be.
Yeah, so we'll keep it open.
Awesome.
Yeah. We'll wait to see where the musicians are, I guess would be, yeah. When we come back, please remind me, Brianna, that we want to talk about music when we come back after the break. Aurora, anything about sound, the walls, masking, psych?
Yeah, looking at that little gap there between the big wall, which I guess is the stage right wall, and the proscenium. So I was thinking of having monitors in the wings as well, on those 2 sides, just on the ground.
Yeah.
But clearance wise, it's like I would rather have something just like sitting upright in the wing than have it like taller and have a big stand.
Yeah.
So if we can it's just the MSR 100. So if we can sneak something in there, I would like to do that. Obviously not in the path of the fire curtain or anything, but if Haley has some lights that are already going to be taking up that footprint where people can't go, then maybe I'd just sort of put something in there. But
great, we'll work together on that and look at the options together so that you're negotiating that area, because it's a bit of a tight area, especially when we cut back on the exit. Yeah,
and basically just having 2 monitors coming from directly stage left, stage right. And if depending on how much coming and going there actually is, right? Because it's like Mike wants them to stay on stage the whole time, but we'll see what actually happens. And otherwise nothing really for the psych. And then it's really just like those other borders coming out, or the other legs coming out so much into the shot. Like I mentioned before, I'm going to be angling things inward because it doesn't go that far deep that I need to like cover the full range of the stage that far. It's like it kind of, it comes into that taper between the 2 walls, so I can kind of angle things inwards a little bit, but other than that, not really. Yep.
Okay, great. Well, we've certainly done lots of work hiding speakers in between legs and negotiating around booms and stuff, which I'm assuming Haley would want to do some offstage booms.
Yeah, those are even like, I'm putting a note on my plan that's like, TBD placement will be moved in the theater. Like, I do not mind. I just want them to be able to hear it the best. So I'm really just going to need their feedback on that and see what things are like in the theater.
Okay. Let's take a break.
Before we do that, sorry.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Haley. Sorry.
With the hard masking, Tiffany, is that a me janga, a you janga, or a me and you and janga conversation?
I guess it could be a me, you, and Jenga conversation as well, because I want you to be able to hit your shot from the apron pipe too. If we're having a conversation based on that.
You're talking about height. You're talking about the height of the borders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking about. Oh, sorry. I was talking about the hard ground row for.
Oh, are you talking about the
side.
ground row?
Yeah.
It could still be a uni Jenga conversation.
I
You
think
can
it
also
does-
bring Ava here too.
As does the border height, and I mean you might as well just the three of you go through it so that it's understood what impact. I mean, we talked about the border. If it's in too low, Haley can't shoot under it, but also now with the ground row, it does change that. I think it's a little masking meeting would be great.
Yeah, I think her height is okay.
Masking meeting.
Masking meeting. Write that down there.
Did somebody say masking?
Somebody say meeting?
No, no meetings.
I can hear Brendan laughing through the wall. It's fine.
And now you can hear me laughing on Zoom. Great.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's great.
yay.
Okay.
Okay, let's take a break.
Yes.
We'll come back at 3:30, and we're going to talk about the band. We're going to look at this adapted schedule, and anything else, and live streaming. That's the other thing. We'll start with live streaming, and then we'll do the rest. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Brianna, just when we get to it,
Yes.
do you want to throw up your the last go round you got to for the tech week? We'll look at
Yeah,
that.
you want that now?
No, when we come to it, but it'll be one of the first
Okay.
things we come to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that Yoda or is it Baby Yoda?
Baby Yoda.
The best Yoda.
You seen Andy yet? She's been hiding the whole time. Show yourself, Andy. Just for a second. Just for a second.
I will not, but I'm here.
Disobeying
Fine.
a direct order from your superior.
All right. All right. We'll start back. What I want to do just before we hop into musicians and that to conversation into live stream, I just want to check with the first years. If anything of kind of what we've gone through, any concepts, anything terminology that we use that we didn't stop to answer any questions about it. So this is a good time because I don't want to assume that all of that is inside your knowledge of vocabulary, let alone anything else. So no question is a silly question. Fire off if you have any.
I had a question for Tiffany, but it's not necessarily in terms of terminology.
Yep.
Who's going to be your crew building the set?
We have the second years for the first week, I believe. And then the second week, it's a mixture of second and first years. So in terms of thinking about how to implement you guys into the process, just because a lot of stuff is going to be happening in that first week, it's going to be kind of like based on like necessity, but also learning possibility for you. So I know that a bunch of my second years are also HODs. So probably we'll be swapping a few of you with those HODs so they have some time to prep. So in terms of like making sure whoever you are paired with, that both of you are touching base, you're having a conversation, you're understanding what you're building and what you're building for what. And then making sure that if you have any questions, we have Aiden, who is our head carp. And then I'm sure Marshall will be around as well as ATD. And if none of them can answer those questions, then I will be with Guillaume, where I can hop in and answer those questions as need be.
Yeah, your questions don't have to be about terminology. It can kind of be just anything that kind of popped up over that long conversation.
And Andy and Charlotte are the two ASMs, so they're going to be, I think, in rehearsal the whole time. Correct me if I'm wrong. They won't be actually in the shop.
That's right. They should
for this show.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're short of people. Sometimes if we're short of people, we rotate them, but I think I think in this case we'll be okay. Yeah, and it'll be important to understand how to bring those two ASMs into that whole process. Yeah.
Yes.
At this point, fire off questions as you have them. So let's just talk about musicians for a minute. So Aurora, tell us the plan, because there are songs, there is singing in the play, as well as a very specific sound, right?
Mm-hmm. So sort of what we've been talking about so far is it's not a musical, it's a play that sort of celebrates music as part of the deep foundations of the culture. So it's a very important thing, and it was very important for us to have live musical aspects because the klezmer music is just so rich and it's so interwoven in the play. So currently we are going to have three-piece band that consists of our musical director, Floyd, who will be playing the accordion part on the electric keyboard and synthesizer, and we'll have a clarinet player, and we'll have a fiddler. And from there, it's really like, it's going to be a balance of me working in certain transitions and atmospheric sounds into underscoring that is produced by musicians into musical numbers. And yeah, it's basically just a constant dialogue between me and the musical director Floyd and the director Mike in terms of what we want to be the most prominent at any point in time. But it's sort of like me and Floyd, the musical director, will constantly be working parallel to each other the whole time. Yeah, and then from there, the next conversation is, where can we actually put these musicians? Because our director Mike would like them to be in the stage picture. So like, if you're an audience member sitting in a chair, being able to see the musicians and also see what's happening on stage, which is definitely a fun challenge of criteria, because it's like, we want them to be close, but they can't be too close. And Brianna has drafted a document for specifically wind instrument COVID protocols that just got approved recently because of COVID. And now that we have that, we can sort of progress with that conversation. And yeah, just sort of find somewhere that works design-wise for the set designer, that works safety-wise for Tiffany and the TD team, and that works sound-wise for me to sort of provide the necessary amplification and monitoring so that the musicians can hear what the singers are singing and the singers can hear what the musicians are playing without any sort of delay or decay in the sound.
Yeah, great. And normally, in a normal year, we could add in that, and maybe we'll be miking all the actors and putting the musicians together so that they can hear each other. Like you said, they have to hear each other and they have to hear the actors and vice versa. But here we've had to make some hard choices. Not hard choices, we just made some practical choices, right? In the sense that we're not gonna mic the actors. And what's too bad about that is that miking all the actors is kind of great pedagogically, right? Because we get the process of mixing all of that and of setting all of that up and about taking care of all of that, and the actors get the experience of using that and mic use in a large venue. But with COVID regulations, it's just one step too far, I feel like, for what we should be concentrating on, because we have so many things to think about. So in pulling that, it does change Aurora's approach, because we do want to hear the actors over top of the musicians. And so that changes the way you're going to mic. And you're right that this conversation about where the musicians are is really, really hard to know what the answer is, because they have to be separate from each other and separate from singers. Singers have to be separate from each other and separate from the band.
Yeah. And also, that's something that in the original script, the musicians are part of the troupe that is playing. So it's like, it never was meant to be that the musicians are separate. Like, they were supposed to be integrated into the whole thing, because as I said, it's supposed to be like a whole celebration in that way. So yeah, the fact that we even have to separate them first of all is like, and then trying to get them back in is really where our challenge is going to be. I know the costume designer, Mariana, is looking into, well, we talked about getting them costumes, but we don't think it's going to work for the budget. So maybe it's just sort of going to be the set designer accessorizing whatever stations we end up making or something, just to like try and bring them into the world of the play a little bit more, especially since they are directly addressed in the script. Like, this is fiddler and this is our clarinet player. So like they are meant to be like, yeah, involved in the story, and the audience has to know that they're there,
Yeah.
but also not be jarred by their presence, you know, like.
Totally, and all of that is exactly the right way to think about this particular thing. I also want to be really careful to keep the priorities where they need to be, and so some of that's is not going to be possible, right? So
Yeah.
what elements do you keep, and what do you just say it's actually not possible in this version of this play, and we're just going to have to be okay with that. And so it's going to be good if you have a conversation coming up about that. It's going to be really interesting to see what you guys come up with, because there are a lot of things you have to consider. It's a lot of extra things that you normally wouldn't have to consider, but take a lot of space in that conversation.
Yep. Yeah, and that conversation is happening sometime this week, but yeah, it has not currently been talked about, or so we'll see.
Good. I'm going to hop back because I got this really great question that Maria just sent from somebody who's watching. Is there a reason that it seems that blending projectors was avoided? So we have lots of experience with blending projectors. Ava, would you like to answer that question?
Yeah, I could talk to it. I personally have never blended projectors, so it would be part of like a learning experience for me. The reason that I was kind of trying to avoid it is just because of all of the time crunch with COVID. It's a lot easier for me to just put one projector up and not have to worry about trying to get both of the projectors to work together and create a picture that really gels. Because I think that would take a lot of calibration time that maybe with the new schedule we don't have as much of. But I don't know, Andrea, if you want to talk about blending.
I think if you need to blend, go and blend. Like,
yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. It's we don't have to, because it is work, but it is also really interesting work and really good to learn how to do that. But it can be, I mean, it takes time, right? It takes time because it is a process you are learning. But if you want to blend projectors, which gets you more lumens and gets you, it gives you the experience of that work and also uses the rig differently. There's no reason to not do it, but I think it's you and your coach who have to determine the priorities, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And the question, I guess, is, do you get enough punch out of one projector? Do you want to stack them on top of each other, right? Or do you want to do side-by-side blending? Does anybody in first year understand, do we need to go through blending? We should go through blending. So who wants to describe what blending is?
I'll give it a shot because I know that Tiffany is still sort of having war flashbacks right now. Very sensitive on the subject. So essentially, blending is when you have like a larger surface than you can cover with just one projector, and you want to have two projectors sort of shooting at the one surface to blend together to make one cohesive image. And to do that, you sort of need to do you need to feather the edges, which is essentially like you're creating void pixels in a certain strip of the image to try and like get the pixels to overlap. But the thing, and it sort of relates to lighting as well, is like anytime you're trying to layer two slightly transparent things on top of each other, it gets brighter in the middle or it has a different texture. So it's all about it's genuinely impossible to get it 100% perfect. And you're just sort of hoping and praying for most of it. And then you're trying to get them to sort of make nice. And the other part of it is you want the projectors to talk to each other and also to receive the exact same signal from the control computer. Because if one of them isn't getting the same signal, then it's going to look different. And then
the difference in bulbs sometimes can
and there's
Never
a difference.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
This is the
difference.
big one.
Difference in lamp life. So different projectors that are different ages will produce the image with a different color temperature or a different amount of light. And also the psych, a problem that is monument specific is that the psych is not white. It is off-white. So you have to then color correct that. So it's just sort of like it's layers on layers on layers of these things that you just sort of you have to slog through, and there's no way around it.
Yeah, no, it's a great answer, and it's not, and we don't shy away from the blending because it's great learning. I mean, Tiffany,
Yeah,
even
you
with her
learn.
PTSD, still learned a heck of a lot last year, right? We also always have different combinations of students learning it, the second year and the third year, kind of doing it together. So it's really great. And I think the reason, Ava, I think you pointed it out, the reason we may not choose it this time is because we are stripping back on some of what we are doing so that we can achieve the ideas, right? Because we are going to be slower with our protocols. It's going to take us longer to do something. We are trying to shorten the day so that people have a healthy lifestyle within a tech week as well. So we're doing a lot that is COVID related that does impact these kinds of choices. So it's an excellent question from whoever had that, because we didn't actually kind of dive into that.
Also, for like image choices, the blending of projectors is amazing for texturized like video or like footage overall. It's not great for a flat surface. So if you have like one red image and you're trying to blend it with another red image, absolutely awful. Just because you have like that extra amount of lumens in the middle that you just get this like beautiful, crisp, like extra like red bright stripe down the middle.
The reason we have so much trouble is because our projectors are slightly older. So we're lacking some of the gear to actually make it easier on ourselves.
Yeah.
That's just money. We have a great, the computer is great and powerful, but we're limited by the capacity of our slightly older projectors. So they do give us grief.
Yeah, and Andrea, talking about that and the projectors that one has is newer than the other, is that like an issue that we can fix this year? I was going to send Caro a message about it because
we're always stuck within because the bulbs are like super expensive.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought.
I think it's a question worth asking. What is the bulb life? We can, and if the French aren't using their projectors, we can maybe get the two projectors that have the closest bulb life to each other. It's totally worth asking.
Cool.
And Hayden on YouTube says amazing responses. Thank you all. That was a good conversation. I'm not making you do a mirror. Like, wait till I make you do a mirror. Then you're gonna yell at me.
A mirror? Like,
Oh yeah.
Like, you got to bounce.
It's like an IQ, but for a projector, right?
Except it's got to be big. So you bounce in the mirror.
You were talking about last year, like.
I thought you were gonna make us project on a mirror.
Yeah, I was like, we didn't project in Burning Vision.
You can project on a mirror.
I would.
No, it's the W throw, but it has lots of issues around it. Lumens, you get a little bit of if you don't have a true mirror, it's not as good. Anyway, we're not gonna talk about that because it's probably crazy making. Anything else about musicians? I mean, we have a lot in singing, so we have a lot to work out in this area, and I don't have very many answers. I just have about 6 billion questions about how the heck we're going to have all those people singing.
Yeah. Currently, I'm working with Rob about looking into shotgun mics because choir mics are just going to pick up way too much and they're moving around way too much and they're just way too general. So I'm thinking about, like Haley, maybe putting some shotgun mics on the torms and angling one upstage and angling one downstage. I still have to talk with Rob about it a little bit more. And then we have one more shotgun mic that's extremely long range. So I could put that sort of in the balcony and just get like a front shot for whoever's in front. But yeah, that's what I'm looking into right now.
Yeah, great. Okay, so let's move on to live stream because this is new. And so Caitlin is taking care of this. What I think is going to be a really cool idea, but we don't normally train live stream, right? We are training theater practitioners to work in live theater, and live streaming is a different thing. But obviously, the way the world is, it is a skill set that is transferable and good to have in your back pocket. So Caitlin is taking on this idea of what we're going to live stream, what we're going to show live during a performance. The tricky part, although I think it's actually the liberating part and makes it even more interesting, is that we don't have broadcast rights for this play, which is totally fine. It means that we're not just going to shoot what's happening on stage. What are we going to do instead, Caitlin?
We are going to be shooting backstage and in the booth. So yeah, I have a system in mind with 3 cameras. So one would be in the booth. So we get to see Brendan calling cues along with those in the booth kind of running those cues. And then I'm going to have a stage view camera as well. So something that will kind of get a full shot of the proscenium. So for any transitions that we might be able to show, then we can also include that, because I think Mike is open to the idea of creating something for live streaming where it's more in a transition so we can actually show it. We have to get creative around not showing the show and like the text that is written. So we're finding ways to have fun with it. And then we'll have a camera backstage as well. And my hope for that is to have a cable that will just run all around backstage. So we'll have a crew person, probably someone in first year, just saying, running around with the camera and getting different shots of maybe an actor walking on stage, or maybe one of the ASMs getting a prop ready, just certain things that we can show what we do. Honestly, yeah, when we talked about it earlier, I was like, we have to get a shot of that, especially during COVID. So I think that'll be really cool. And then we'll have Julian as the head of live stream in the house with a switcher. So we're able to kind of switch between the shots, the cameras that we're using, and what we're seeing. And then something that I would like to try is connecting the audio straight into the headsets, so that we'd be able to hear Brendan calling cues, but everyone responding to that as well. And like, if there's something flying in backstage, we'd be able to hear the fly person responding to that. And maybe we'd be able to see a bit of it, like something flying in on stage. So it's kind of a mixture of things that we're going to see and hear. And then I also would like to connect to the soundboard, and that'll be a conversation with me and Aurora of what can we hear and what music, what sound effects maybe has Aurora made that we can actually live stream. And so if Brendan like calls a sound cue and then we hear it as well. So it's kind of mixing a whole bunch of different things. And something that our live stream instructor talked about, Jesse, was connecting to the video system as well. And so kind of taking some images that Ava has created and overlaying that on some of the shots that we get with the cameras. So there'll be kind of a mixture of everything. Even though we don't get to see what's happening on stage, we still get to see and hear elements of the designs that we're doing.
I think it's great. I mean, I think it's super exciting, and it's taking what you would think of as a constraint or a problem and turning it around into something, you know, making some lemonade. And also just it makes everybody mind their P's and Q's on headset.
Yeah, definitely.
Mind your P's and Q's.
Don't call that sound too late. I'm just saying.
Because my mom is gonna be watching. Like, listen, every single prod kids, parents, older people that they're friends with, whatever, are like, I'm so excited to be able to see what you're doing and what you did. I don't care what the actors are doing. And like, so this is like, a lot of people are very excited. The entire Oakville Women's Book Club will be in attendance. Like
it is really great though that normally when your parents go and see a show, they see the actors, which is really lovely, but I know with my parents, they were always like, we want to see you. Like, we want to see you on stage. And I was like, I don't want to be on stage. I want to be backstage. Like, no. So it's kind of a way that we get to show what we do and live stream it, which is, I think, is amazing. So we have kind of the show on stage, but then we have our own show that we get to perform.
Totally. I have a question. Another question. Just somebody checking doesn't know what a torm is, which is it's not actually not every theater uses that term, but so I just want to explain what it is because we talked about it a few times. But just
your camera's off. Your camera's off in the DOP.
Andrea, we can't see you.
How can it be
In
off?
the DOP.
In the DOP. No.
Wait, no, Andrea,
There's
no.
something in front of it.
What happened?
What is that?
It's the camera itself. What happened?
Oh my god.
Oh my god. What is that?
Okay.
What happened? That was Mary. She turned my camera off. I betcha. Okay.
Mariana?
Right?
Mary.
Okay.
Oh
So this is that's the apron. Its audience is here. So the view to the stage is here. And this is the proscenium. So the proscenium arch that frames the stage. A torn pipe is behind the proscenium so that you can hang either this way, out that way, or straight, a light, and your shot is on stage. So the light could be there, or the light could be here if it's side on. Okay, so the torn pipe is just a pipe, a vertical pipe that goes up along on the back of the proscenium from the floor to whatever predetermined position it stops at the top. We call that for us, we call that a torn pipe. It's a couple different ways to term that. And so we talked about the shotguns being on the torn pipes and lights and speakers already. We've already talked about. They're very busy torn pipes. And also the trick for us is that the torn pipe is close to the fire curtain, which and also the main rag. So if we're doing the main rag, we really get into big problems. For us, the main rag is up, so we don't have a front curtain, but we do have to stay clear of the fire curtain, which is easier than staying clear of the red front curtain. So there is that. Okay, so just in terms of the live stream, there is just a lot of backstage choreography that we'll have to, that's what we're gonna have to manage, I think, especially if you've got two cameras that can move around.
It might be one right now. That's what I have planned. And the extra or the other camera that I was going to have is going to do Ava's live or Ava's video design instead. Yeah. So right now it's only one camera, but definitely the cable that's on the ground. I'm curious at how we work that and entrances and exits for actors and all of that. Yeah.
No, that's totally all good stuff to think about. Okay, so we have just over half an hour. What we're going to do is we're going to look at if there's any other questions before we move on to a schedule thing. Any questions at all? From first year, you're all good? You now know where the tour pipe is? Okay, so we're going to look at Brianna's schedule. So what we normally do is we take a whole week to load in. And in that week, we normally start at 9 and we finish at 10 p.m. And it's Monday to Saturday. And show your screen now because the activities are similar to what we normally do. The order, I'm going to let Brianna talk you through the order of how we move into that venue.
Yep, found the unmute button. There we go. Yeah, so I think you can all see my schedule. Great. Yeah, so normally, like Andrea said, we kind of use the whole day for install week and tech week. And so what I have here is install week, tech week, and performance week. So this is the look at what our install week will look like. And so we're moving from the 9 to 10 format into a 9 to 6 format. Yeah. And that's in order to like get everyone out sooner and spending less time all crammed together in the theater. And normally we also have multiple activities happening at once. So while we install the lights, the sound and the video team are also usually doing something else in the house or on deck. And it's kind of all hands are in the theater working at the same time. And that's something that we're also changing up for this year. So Andrea and I have been working together to figure out how to kind of get everything in and plan still, but doing predominantly one activity in one department at a time. Yeah, and so that's kind of how this week has been placed out. There's some troubleshooting things that overlap with a larger activity like set install. But that, for example, would just be the one HOD dealing with their own system by themselves. So we're limiting the amount of people and the amount of people that are working on deck kind of at once.
Yeah, and so what we don't know yet, we haven't assessed yet, is if we can get everything we need to get done in the time that we're putting it in. So this is, as is every schedule you'll ever do in your life. It's a living document. It will change on the fly according to any bits of information. We talked about a lot of things today that impact this schedule, and some of it we'll have to kind of manage carefully as we think through it. So, can we get the hang done? Normally we do what do we do? 3, 4, 3, 3 hours, 4 hours, 3 hours. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, like the whole first day really is the masking move and the lighting hang. So that's one of the things, for example, for here that's really cut down is that hang. Yeah, I feel like that'll be one of the things that will probably change for sure from this schedule. Yeah. But
Ava, maybe I missed it. Sorry, where are you hanging your front projector?
In the house left box.
Oh, thank you. No, I know. I'm totally just like, yes. No, I didn't miss it at all. We talked about it. Okay, great. So there is maybe a potential for the Oiseau, which is our front of house. It's a big catwalk system in the front of house. So maybe on the Tuesday morning, that is activity that is completely separate from where Ava and her team will be working and where Aurora's team will be working, because they'll be downstairs and they can be upstairs. So that is an example of two activities that could exist together, because they're not both on deck.
Yes, yeah, and that's something that I think Tiffany and I were talking about it, or somebody the other day, of we have done it before where the lighting team doesn't move into the house, so at the ladders or into the Oiseau until sound and video have left, and it's kind of like a swap that happens. So just keeping that in mind again this year, but taking it to like a whole new level of like two teams I think will be able to work, but one in the house, one on deck, and just kind of having that line very specific.
Yeah, totally. And then I think too, maybe just where the troubleshooting is, where it's kind of one head of department troubleshooting their rig, we can have lighting. The 3 heads can be working on their troubleshooting while the set is being installed, because most of that troubleshooting is going to happen in the house, right? At their console, and if they have to go on stage, they can negotiate. We can negotiate how many people are already on stage and when they can come to their equipment. So I think that
totally, yeah.
I just have a question. When do we see live streaming being involved, or is that kind of going along with video and their schedule?
I feel like it depends, because we're still figuring out what your full system looks like. So I feel like it will depend a lot on what that actually is. But I feel like you'll get tagged on with the other heads and with the other like with sound and video for sure. So kind of in those times I see you working alongside them. But yeah, I think we have to discuss it a bit more in detail later when we actually know, like if you do need to get too close to the video team, then you might not actually be able to work when they're working and like that kind of thing.
Okay.
It all depends on what the system actually is.
And we could, this is an example of where we might extend the day, like on Tuesday, let set install in the afternoon, and then maybe we have an evening call with, it's just the 3 heads working together, or 4 heads, I guess, because we want to make sure that as live streaming is connected to sound at times. So we probably want to give them a concentrated period of time where there's not a lot going on and they can really just do that troubleshooting together.
Yeah, that would be good.
That'd be sweet.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because like you kind of have to work together.
Yeah, exactly.
Like even if it's just I get to work with Caitlin first and then Ava works with Caitlin afterwards, or like our
Yeah.
department
Yeah,
or
I
whatever.
definitely
Like,
think the sound would take a bit more time to get precise and
exactly.
yeah, okay.
I feel like that, like an evening call for like in that Tuesday evening would be something that would work out, because everyone who is needed for that probably wouldn't be on set
Yeah.
that afternoon, so it would be a separating those teams.
I will say too that given that we're not really spending all kind of 2 days all wandering around the venue, putzing around with our installs, right? It does mean the heads must set up their systems ahead of time as best they can. It can't happen entirely, obviously. There's some that, but certainly with video, it can all, that whole system can be set up just in an office, right? And it's sound is obviously different, but everything can be checked.
Yeah, I'm not gonna ask anybody to take the M7 all the way up to the room.
The live stream kit and the video kit, those can all be fully assembled and working before moving in, right? And that I think the onus is on them to make sure that that's the case.
Yeah.
Especially now. Always we want to do that, but especially now.
Totally.
And then the question of is that enough time for set?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then is that enough time for focus?
Yep. Really all of it, all of them had to get squashed, and I'm
Okay,
it's
I'm
like
super speedy.
Yeah, you got to yell really loud, Haley. Okay, can you do that for me?
All hand motions.
The sound calibration also is maybe something that could pop into the evening on the Thursday. So we're picking like another moment where that's a bit of a solitary moment as well, and nobody really wants to be in the room with them, right?
Yeah, I was good.
Yeah,
Well,
same with
yes.
the video mapping too. Like those are two things that usually do they happen together? No, I don't remember.
They can.
Yeah. But yeah, that's something that it takes a small amount of people and could happen in the evening for sure.
Yeah, and just personally, I would love to have just like a nice chunk of uninterrupted like time where I can just sort of sit and chat to Rob. Figure out sort of like the acoustics of that kind of room. And
no, we're squeezing you for sure on 2 hours there. But I think talking it through, Brianne, I think what's really coming clear to us is that there are bigger activities that take more people, and those should take the bulk of the day, and the ones that are that include fewer numbers, we can slip those into the evening so that, and they don't have to come in the morning unless they need to do some troubleshooting, right? So I think that's
I think that would good. That'd be good.
Yeah. So we're split. I mean, some people have to stay longer, but again, that can be a shared responsibility. So for instance, Tiffany can stay Tuesday and Brandy can stay Thursday or
right. Sweet. And we have the 2 tech notes times in the mornings as well that I don't know could become smaller and be used for other things like a continued.
I think we'll need them there. I think it's wise.
Or...
Yeah, and I want to try not to do that costume parade on deck. I know that it can be helpful to the costume designer to see everything in one palette, but I think we're better off trying to put it into one of our days of the week after.
Yeah, because that's their hair and makeup day, and in the past we've done that. So we definitely don't have to do it this year.
And they're the hair and makeup sessions they're having are so different as well. Anyway.
Yeah.
Still to be discussed. I don't know the answer to that.
Yep.
Okay. And then we wanted to do levels Friday, Saturday, and you still got them on Monday?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And Brendan and I had a brief chat about which of these times the director will actually be able to come, and if the
Friday, right? Because it's the makeup, hair and makeup.
Yes, for sure on Friday, but for the Saturday and Monday, what that meant for rehearsals if we had him
100%.
with
what
us.
we could talk about is maybe we do levels in the morning, and maybe we move the rehearsal into the afternoon, evening if Mike wants to do longer days. So we haven't ever really done that, Brendan, but maybe that's something we could consider.
Yeah.
And that had been the last day in the rehearsal halls before we were going to move on deck, but maybe in this schedule, maybe we stay in the rehearsal hall longer, Brianna. So I don't know, because previously that evening, I mean, you've actually got it on there. Could be a strike, but maybe that happens at a different time for the rehearsal hall.
Yeah. If that day ends up being longer for you guys and we swap levels to the morning, then the strike.
That's not the right choice. Yeah, and it may not be the right choice. Maybe Saturday should be your thing.
Okay.
Look at it on Monday.
I mean, we can talk about it, but
yeah.
If levels would be that morning, I'd go right to working with the director, like no pre-levels. So,
let's direct. Say that again.
so on the Friday, if that first session, the levels was in the morning.
No, we're talking about Saturday.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
you'll get your pre-levels. You'll get time
Yeah.
to fuss through things
That's very
and
kind.
learn what's going on before Mike shows up. We always need to do that. It's really helpful. What's not here is a paper tech as well. We should think about when that happens. And then can you just go to the next week? Oh, we're getting closer, Brianna, but we have still a lot of.
I know it's gonna be like 5 versions by the time we get to like the good one.
Yeah, even the one that we could show everybody.
Yeah.
We had asked maybe the Wandle probe. Maybe somebody can describe what a Wandle probe is.
A Wandle probe is yes.
No, sorry. I was gonna say a what?
Oh, do you don't know what it is? Okay.
I don't even know what words you're saying to me.
Well, we're going to talk to
Fine.
the musical theater aficionado of the class, Brianna.
Oh God. So a Wandle probe is getting the whole cast together with the orchestra. But it's different from a cis probe because you actually run the numbers usually on the stage as well. But it's the first time really with the band and the movement all put together.
Can you type in the chat how that's spelt? I genuinely don't know the syllables.
It's on the thing. Do you see it? I'm highlighting it on my document.
Monday morning.
A Wandle probe. What does it mean? What does it stand for?
Wandle. It's like
Google that.
Great. Well, I guess I'm going to do my own research.
I can't tell you, and it's like German, so it has the W's of V.
It's a German term, and it's sort of related to wander. So the idea is that you're doing it with choreography, and so we're stepping through the musical numbers. And the other word Brianna used that we sometimes might do, it's called a sits probe, which is the same thing. You're doing every musical number except you're just sitting, so you're not doing it with the choreography.
You're not wandling.
Standing.
You're not wandling.
No wandling.
Anyways, so that's a Wandle probe. Yes.
We're wandling away from the.
Which,
We have a question about that, whether we can put it into the schedule and helpful if we can. So, and then normally with the actors, okay, so an equity company would work how many 10 out of 12 days are allowed in an equity company?
2.
Oh my God.
No.
How many 10 out of 12s can we do generally, according to equity?
Isn't it 4?
Yeah, 4.
Oh,
So 4 we can do 2 if we have 2 longer ones in the rehearsal hall as well. We can have 2 in the rehearsal hall and 2 on stage. It's called a thing. But the extended days, which can be a maximum of 10 out of 12 hours, is we can have 4. Normally in the school we do 5 because we are slower. So we normally do Monday, Tuesday, 10 out of 12. Wednesday we would just have an 8-hour day with the actors. Thursday, Friday, Saturday would be 10 out of 12 days because it just takes us time to get through this process of working through the play with tech. It takes us time. So we're thinning that down. The idea being that we are going to be trying to achieve less with the time that we have. But by the time we get to the run-throughs, we're not going to do afternoon run-throughs. It kind of really doesn't make any sense. And you're all going to need tech notes time because that's just a necessity as well. So then Brianna kind of put in the Friday, Saturday back to our sort of regular schedules of 2 longer days, not quite 10 out of 12 for the actors, but that's the idea. But the dinner has to be longer.
Oh yeah, hour and a half.
Yeah, although you've only got them in from 2 to 10.
Yeah, it's shorter. It's
you
shorter.
only have 8 hours there. So we can play around with that, right? Just so that if you have an 8-hour day, you only need to give an hour dinner. But as soon as wanders past an 8-hour span of day, then the dinner has to be
Mhm.
longer. There are various models, and we'll go through the models in other classes. But if we start the actors at 1 and go to 10 or 11, depends on how long the run is, right? And if he's doing notes after, or if he's zooming notes once they all get home, or if he's doing
Yeah.
notes the next day, that's the kind of stuff we don't know yet, right?
Yeah, and that was a conversation too, because we think the biggest room that can actually have, like, we have our touch space, but they also have notes with actors, and I think the only room that can have that, like, that we have it, like, is the Luge. Like, we don't have that dressing room anymore that we can use.
No.
So a talk of maybe one of those gets moved onto Zoom.
Yeah.
Might happen.
Yeah, I suppose we technically have the rehearsal hall as well.
Yeah, we should. So
Maybe
that's another option.
Yeah, that's another option. But yes, we just have to extend that dinner to an hour and a half if we extend that day with actors. And we might want to do that, like shorten the tech notes, bring them in at 1 and go a little longer for notes. Anyway, that's still.
Yep.
But the other difference here is, go to the next week. We're gonna throw our dress rehearsal on the Monday night. Instead of do our preview on the Monday night, partly because who knows if we'll still be in the red zone. But we are limited, obviously, no matter what, in who can come see the show. So we're not gonna, and we never really put too much emphasis on that end of it. Process is everything for us, always. And so if we can do fewer performances, that's okay. If we can do that for smaller groups of people, that's okay. So we'll give ourselves a little bit more time and an extra day that Monday to get through to our dress. I think it's a good plan.
Quick question. Are we thinking of doing talkbacks in any sort of format, whether it's live or like afterwards, just online, or?
I'm gonna say no. I don't know how we would logistically manage that. I think we've all got enough to think about.
I am good with that.
I mean, well, we can leave it open to the acting company that if they want to do that, they can arrange that as a separate thing.
That we are not involved with?
Yeah, probably. Well, you could be if you wanted to. It's a choice, it's always a choice. But that would be maybe daytime thing or not connected to a performance, but happening in around. But I don't see I don't imagine that that's really going to be helpful to anybody to do that.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then we close and strike. We strike without actors this year. Normally they help us, but at least not yet.
So sad.
That does
So sad.
put the emphasis on more people, but I think we'll have a smaller rig to take down.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've got a weird thing going on there with your.
I know, I just noticed.
It's like a
I don't know. My Excel hates me sometimes, so that's okay.
Okay, so we still have, I think I said, we're getting super close. I mean, we stick with, in terms of equity, we stick with when we can have dinners, what length of dinner we have, how many long days we can do, what does a standard day look like, what do the breaks look like? All of that is within an equity structure, because it's really important for us to keep remembering to work that way. But we still have a lot to work on. So I think maybe, Brianna, the goal would be that next week you and I should really, really sit down and hash out a really solid first proposal.
Yeah.
So that we can send that off to people for feedback, and Mike can have that in his mind as well, because it'll impact, it's going to impact everything.
Yeah.
And every now and then we can stretch that kind of longer day thing, but I think it is wise of us to imagine some shorter days.
For sure.
And right now we know the idea is that we're in red zone until November 23rd, which is after we load in. No, what day do we load in? That Monday.
November 23rd.
That's right in the middle of our week, right?
November 23rd is, the first day of install.
Yeah, so that's the potentially when we're knocked out of red. If they'll reassess after 2 more weeks. Nobody knows anything. And all that means is, it doesn't really mean anything for you guys, because this is pedagogical and this is lab work. This is the physical work you have to do to actually train. So we will carry on. It just changes the performance part of it. If we can dial back and we're allowed more people, then that changes how many people can come see it, if any. But there's that fantastic live stream gonna go on, that Backstage live stream. Okay, so just to, in wrapping up, I don't know if there's any more questions from our outside invited audience, but anybody here, any thoughts, questions, anything that you feel we need to talk about more specifically, or anything we didn't talk about? Anything you are worried about in terms of rehearsal, Brendan, that is out of this meeting that you're not so sure about anymore, or how do you feel going into rehearsal?
I feel all right. There's a lot of unknowns, I think, and that's usually fine. I think the thing that I'm most concerned about is the ability to facilitate a rehearsal and discovery process, whilst also making sure that we're abiding by the COVID measures, particularly the distancing one. I've been talking about with my coach around ways to facilitate distancing in the hall, whether I get like a rope and tape like 2 meters apart on the rope or something. You know what I mean? It's just in terms of that process. I know they're all masked in the rehearsal process, unless there's only one person, which is not what Mike's intending at this point. But that's something that I feel concerned about, I think.
If you could grid out, like on the downstage edge, 2 feet markers, and then 2 feet markers moving upstage. So you could kind of grid out, not so that you'd stand on a marker, but that you can understand where the markers are. It's a visual representation of how much actual space 2 feet is. I mean, 6 feet is 2 feet. That's a pipe dream. Where 2 meters are. So if you start at center and go and just do tape marks, like we do with the focus tape.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that
makes sense.
Grid themselves out.
Yeah, I was imagining whether a grid was helpful on the floor, but I think maybe the points of the grid, but not a full, like not these giant lines of tape. I'm concerned that's going to obscure where the walls are, and I don't want to make it confusing for myself or the performers.
Yeah, I think it's the confusing part for them as well, because they're going to feel like they have to walk in a grid, right? When they don't, but if they're constantly being able to kind of see that's 2 meters, oh no, the 2 meters over there, I should adjust a little bit. Maybe if there's a bit of a reference to that. It's going to need a bit of policing, but also if they wear visors and goggles, right, they could make mistakes until we figure out how to do it, right? And maybe that's just how they go about their regular day, so that they're not having to think about the 2 meters while they're setting, blocking, and rehearsing scenes where they're fully protected. And then as that settles in, then you kind of go, okay, so what do we need to do here now to open this scene up? I mean, I don't want them, you're not going to get close and touch each other. That's not what I mean, but they don't have to worry so much about passing each other and all of that if they are fully protected.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then there's just, we're setting up a Zoom room, right? That's going to be on all day, so people can zoom in to watch rehearsal, because we have a limitation of the capacity of that room. So people can't just come and go as they would normally do. And how many run throughs you do, because some people will need to be in the room for a run through, and some can watch. Like I can watch a Zoom run through. It doesn't matter to me. But your designers want to be there. There's a voice coach, movement coach, musical director, head of the program. It's just associate head of the program, right? So the list can kind of balloon pretty fast. So yeah.
Yeah, and to jump off of that, if we can, like, even right now, just sort of like, if I'm the one running the sound, and Mike mentioned that he wants me in rehearsal play, like he wants as much sound as possible in rehearsal.
I think that's why.
So then do I have priority over all the other designers for actually being there in person?
I think there's priority, but I also think there's give and take. So maybe there's a day that you say, we just say, Aurora's not in the room today, but Ava's in the room today, and that there's a bit of that back and forth, but that you have more time in the room than Ava and Haley do. But I do think we want to work carefully with the capacity of the room and just come up with a plan. Aurora's there Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Haley can be there
so like
Friday. Ava can be there Monday and Thursday, stuff like that.
so we can specifically schedule even before we go into rehearsals exactly what days, exactly what times I'm going to be in, and just be like, that's what's happening.
I think so.
Okay, great.
And that will be fun. It'll have to
Yeah.
be fun.
I look forward to that conversation.
Related to that, Andrea, the thought I had was around some sort of a shared document, like a Google Sheet, that where we had sort of an indication of how many spaces were available physically in the room each day, and then that could be used as an advanced planning tool. And then I would set a cutoff, at which point for the previous, like, you know, whatever, a certain time one day for the next day, and then I would reflect that in my daily schedule. I know in the past you've been reticent to use platforms that are sort of in that public Google sort of world.
No, it's only for documents. I want all the documents to be on the SharePoint, but a shared, like in the sense of a dropping document somewhere, a shared document, I can't duplicate that in any other format. So Google's fine, but I think Brianna needs to set that up and monitor it and be because I really need Brianna to be kind of protocol. Because everybody's kind of really focused in on smaller areas, and to have somebody who has a bigger picture on all of that is really necessary. It's part of the PM's job, and especially now.
Yeah.
Right. Am I right in thinking that I have a role in thinking about specifically who's in rehearsal at a given moment, or am I passing that responsibility off to Brianna?
Well, it's not about passing the responsibility. It's just who's actually taking the lead on the document itself.
I understand.
Talk daily about what you're going to do and who could come in the room and who should be in the room. It's absolutely a conversation.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
And then you can still put it on your, daily, like still kind of manage that part, but I'll take on the actual, like the document of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I can't really give you another format where it's an easily interchangeable use of the document.
I mean, we can all edit Excel documents on SharePoint, but not everyone's on SharePoint, and I'm just concerned about that interface.
And it's a bit clunky, right?
Yeah.
It's a bit clunky. Yeah.
Great. So I'll work with Brianna on that.
Something for if I'm setting up the Zoom call and how that works. This could be a conversation for later, but what Zoom channel are we using? Are we using the PT3 one?
Yeah, I can actually speak to that. I wasn't actually aware that you were working on the rehearsal hall Zoom, Caitlin.
Okay.
So that's fantastic that you are. But I began a conversation. The plan is to use the Acting 3 Zoom account so that ours is available for meetings that are happening outside of the rehearsal room. So I've actually set up, I have the login information for that, and I've set up a recurring meeting for it, and I'll pass all that information off to you.
Perfect.
Although I'm not imagining you would necessarily be in the room to like begin that.
Yeah, that was the next thing.
I'm imagining that's something I might do. But we'll talk more about that. And maybe you and I can meet at some point around Rehearsal Hall Zoom. Probably outside of this. I don't want to take all our time, Andrea.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. Just to be aware of who's taking the lead on what. Caroline, you had a question before. Sorry.
It's like a really minute, it has nothing really to do with production, but more the actors. Will they be wearing the singing masks or regular masks or switching in between the two? Because they do have dialogue, but they also sing.
It's a choice. Yeah.
My understanding at this point is that in rehearsal, they're required to be masked at all times. So I think it's probably up to them what mask they're using at any given moment. And then my understanding is also that at this point on stage, if they're maintaining the 6 feet distance and greater if they're singing, that they're able to not be masked for the performance. And so I think that's the intention we're working with. And then they would put on a mask when they exit the stage to be in the backstage area.
Yeah.
So the end game is to have them not masked on stage.
Well, end game. What an excellent question.
I mean, that's the goal, but
yeah, I mean, here's the idea of the goal. So what the protocol is built on is on what the Montreal community was doing before the red zone, right? So, and it's not a concern with one or two. If there's distancing and ventilation and all of the things that mitigate exposure, if all of that is in place, then there's minimal risk of exposure if an actor is on stage without a mask on. 13 actors on stage. I don't know yet. I honestly don't know yet. The choice ultimately will be the committee at school. but I can't answer that yet because I don't know. I don't know what that means. It's a lot for me to take in when we get to that conversation. And I'm just being like super honest here, right? It's not, I want to do what's right for the pedagogy, and we are learning how to produce live theater. So I just don't know at what point we obviously have to, number one priority is everybody's.
Yeah, for sure. I was just thinking like to get an idea as to where everyone's thoughts with that is now.
The protocol is as written that we can do that, but distancing has to be maintained. And you can't cross each other, and you've got, as soon as you come off stage, the mask goes on. You can't touch anything without cleaning your hands. So there's a lot of other things that I would encourage you to read those production guidelines again and again and again, so it's really clear. And then we'll decide kind of as a school what we feel comfortable with when we actually do run-throughs. And it's only for run-throughs and the performances, right? Every moment of every rehearsal is masked.
And run-throughs in the rehearsal hall are also masked. Like we're talking run-throughs on the luge deck when we've got that additional space and ventilation.
Correct. That's correct. Yeah. Yeah. Rehearsals is masked.
You mentioned this earlier, Andrea. I just wanted to add Mike's general intention is to have lots of run-throughs. So there should be lots of opportunity to cycle people through to get to see it.
That's so great. Excellent. Yeah, he did that with Burning Vision too.
Yeah, he was saying that he wants to really flesh out the blocking, or sort of bash through a rough outline of the blocking in the first week in the Money Mall. So that's the second week of rehearsal. Yeah. And then from there, essentially move towards kind of running it every day, and then taking notes and making adjustments as it goes.
Would it be helpful, or would it just be one extra thing that we don't want to think about if we're doing that many run-throughs, and if there is sound being operated for those run-throughs, would it be helpful to have Mitch doing it instead of me? Just so that he gets a sense of what the cues are, if Brendan is maybe just sort of doing some basic cueing in the hall, or is it one too many things? Because I know that's been done before, that SMs like to practice the sound cues sometimes with whoever's in there, but
I think we can discuss it. It's not I'm not worried about it so much about practice. I am more concerned that Mitch has enough prep time outside of the hall, so that he's not, because what can happen sometimes is that people get used to him being there and he kind of loses his prep time because he's in rehearsal so much. I think it's open for discussion. What's the best?
Okay.
Because run-throughs should have as much sound as is available, but we'll have to kind of go, when we get closer, we'll know a bit better, I think.
Sounds good.
All right, I'm gonna
We are at 4:30.
We are at 4:30, exactly.
Yes.
Well, 4:31, sorry.
4:31.
Over a minute. Okay, great. So the next class, the first years are not at, and it's really just the week before we move into the theater, and it's really just a kind of to just talk through that process again and make sure that we really have a good plan for our load-in, and then we kind of talk about some other general production management concepts as well as a separate sort of half the class. Excellent. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
This was
Bye.
interesting. Thanks, guys. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. See you guys later, hopefully.
Maybe.
See you later.